Probably should have done that transition across without letting the song play again, but that's all right. We made it. We're here, and how's our sound? Our sound's all right. All right, cool. Man, I will never stop loving this new microphone that lets me hear the stream mix at the touch of a button. And now I can turn it back off, and it's all good. And I know that the chill hop music is not overbearing. What's up? It is Friday, and we are excited because holy shit, do we live for the weekend at the moment. That's all right. Slowly eking our way towards hopefully the possibility one day of doing 4-day weeks. But today, this week, this month, this year is not that year. But we're going to do some other stuff. We're going to cover some topics. We actually did a little bit of preparation, although maybe I'm being very, what's the word? Optimistic in calling what I've done preparation. What I've done is I set up a scheduled live stream, like an hour, if that, before the live stream, and decided some stuff that I was going to cover. What I haven't done is set up my tabs. So we're going to set up the tabs now while we sort of chill out and relax a little bit. Because we're going to cover a few things. So one thing I wanted to cover was Walkable Cities, because there was a tweet that got my attention on Twitter, which is a thing that we're going to talk about, and that is Walkable Cities, of course. Why the hell? Get that window away. Hey Paul, how's it going? 4-day work week, 4 days on, 4 days off. See, I know a lot of people, I say a lot of people, I've known people that do the 4 days on, 4 days off in the past. And like, while technically they're still working just as many hours generally, like usually it'll be like a 12-hour shift. And so it sort of still works out to about the same. The thing is that like when you've got 4 days on, 4 days off, if you take 4 days of holidays, suddenly you've got 12 days off. Like it's, yeah. You can be a lot more devious with how you get that that time off going. See, I'm more in the category, so my work is sort of office work. So I can't really justify 12-hour work days. What I want to do is get some of my costs and stuff under control to the point where I can actually feasibly go, hey, I only need to do a 9-day fortnight, and instead of 7.5-hour days, I'll do 8.5-hour days, and I'll only do 4 days a week, 3-day weekend, 4 days a week, 3-day weekend. That's the dream, right? All right, let's find that YouTube video we wanted to do. It's something to do with bikes. Not just bikes, that's what it was. All right, cool. Let's get that sorted. I actually did my finances for, so like I'm in the position where I'm quite lucky where, I say lucky, I'm in the position where I have the opportunity to do other things than what my normal job is and get paid for that. And I've been doing higher duties now for 8 months, 9 months. And if I go to my old job, which is unlikely, because at the moment I'm backfilling someone that is transitioning to retirement, so it seems really unlikely that they'll be back. But I did figure out if I go back to my old job, because of some pay increases that have been scheduled, I should be able to actually go to that 4-day week, because at the same time next year I finally finish paying off my student debt. HEX debt for the people that are old, HELP debt for the people that are Australian and young, and student loans for everyone else in the world. Which that adds like, that almost doubles my discretionary money, you know, at the end of bills and stuff. So you take 1.5 days to get 1 day off per 4 days. All right, I need to increase that chat size a little bit. We're in a new setup, which is exciting. So we're still making everything work. So 4 days of holidays equals 6 days. Oh, true. Sorry. Yep, you're right. I did forget to include that. I think part of why I did think that initially was because a lot of the time like it's time in lieu and stuff, which I suppose is still the same amount of hours and stuff. So, see, this is just my soft 5 feels like 5 years a week, 5 days a week brain. Not figuring stuff out properly. So, hey, man, I hate YouTube chat so much. Alright, well, that's just going to have to work as it is. We'll see how it goes. So what was the other thing we were going to be looking at? It's the name of the stream. So you'd think I'd be all across it. Man, this is a bop. I don't know why I don't hear more chillhop.com on streams, because it is free. Like it is free for use as long as you put a link to their website, which I have done. I'm 99% sure I've done everything I need to do for proper attribution. So, you know, we'll see what happens. I'm pretty sure I've had no copyright strikes on YouTube. What was I doing? I was going to my YouTube channel, of course, because I've got the mind of a sieve. I know there was some tweets about should we take down rock and roll in the same way we took down Confederate statues, which I won't spoil the ending on that. It was pretty funny though. Your videos. Why is it so hard to get to my live on mobile? And that's not even my live. That's an old live. We need to do a lot of housekeeping on the channel as well. I'm going to start delisting live streams and putting them on a separate playlist and trying to be a bit more consistent. You know what? Fudge it. It's on my Twitter. And actually, I should have reposted the Twitter anyway. I'm also partially distracted because I'm surrounded by a mess, because I still have not finished redesigning this room. We have the lovely nano leaves because, you know, got to look like every other streamer out there. And for whatever reason, I fucking love them. I think they're the best things in the world. They're currently on cherry blossom mode. Very, very appropriate for me. But so normally you would have seen me streaming over here. Like I would have been sat right there facing that way. And we've got a deeper desk now that has a bit more room, which means I actually have all my consoles up here. So I've got the Xbox, the Switch, the PlayStation 5. Technically, the SNES is still on the floor because we need to run some cables and stuff. There's still some cable management to go with the HDMI splitter. But a $179 IKEA desk, and it has the best cable management system like ever. It blows my mind how simple it is and how effective it is, because it's a net that goes under the table and there's a gap about 3/4 of the way through the desk. So all your cables go through there. The power cable comes up and enters the side of that channel, and then everything goes down into my power boards that are down there. Fucking amazing. Like I was so close. There was a secret lab. Like you possibly, you know, if you do any gaming and stuff, would inevitably get ads for secret lab chairs, and they've got like the Overwatch chairs, the Game of Thrones chairs, the Batman chairs, all that sort of stuff. They made a desk called the Magnus, which I think came out last year, but not in Australia. And I fell in love with that desk so hard because it is a fully magnetized desk, steel construction, powder coated, but then they had custom mats that would go across the top, like soft feel mats, kind of like mouse pads, but a bit more robust and thick, and like just to give you that nice feel of a desk. And I wanted it so bad. I signed up for notifications when it came to Australia, and it came to Australia, was it last week? It was on the long weekend, so I think that was last week. Or was it the week before? That was last week. And I remember waking up my wife at like 11 p.m. at night when I got the email saying, the desk, it's in, let's go. Because it was about $800. By the time you got the desk and you got the pad and you got like, the killer thing about it was that because it's all metal, they used magnets to guide cables. So there'd be like these little clips that would go over your cables, and they'd stick to the desk, and that's how you would run all your cables and stuff. There's a channel at the back where you could hide everything, somewhere to put some RGB, LED strips, magnet cases that would go on the legs that would hide a cable coming up the table leg and stuff. but it was $800. I spent maybe 24 hours wavering between it and the IKEA one. And at the end of the day, I was just like, this is ridiculous. I'm considering spending $600 on a desk for magnets when this IKEA desk looks pretty good. So we went with the IKEA desk, and I so far loving it. It doesn't have that. Oh, look, there's a bit of wobble. That's mostly the monitor mount, though, to be fair. It doesn't have the IKEA wood issues. I find a lot of IKEA desks, when they're made out of wood, the drilling and machining of them to fit together isn't always the most accurate, and it leads to screws being a bit tight to get in, and you strip the screws and it doesn't hit quite nice, and there's a bit of play once you put it together. This is steel or metal, whatever it is, powder coated frame with the wooden desk on top, and then a mesh metal back. It's hashtag not sponsored. All right, so we've got the Walkable Cities. I know we had the rock and roll thing. So probably going through my replies, no tweets, because I retweeted that because I'm such a Chad. All right, there we go. So we got that. And what was our other thing? Man, it's kind of crazy. I can't think of it off the top of my head. Stage fright, Dusha. This unit. Profile. Tweets. I should probably do a live now tweet, shouldn't I? Yeah. Walkable City. Oh, that's right. There was that YouTube channel. What social democrats don't... No, 5 questions to stump social democrats. Wait, no. Quote, retweet, not retweet. God, 7:45. Let's go. Technically, that makes me look a little bit late, but hey, whatever. Whatever. All right. Open YouTube. What channel did I save that to? History's over here. I don't watch YouTube on the old desktop, so it. Here we go. 5 questions to ask democratic socialists. Shut up. We're saving you for later, my friend. All right. Well, I guess we've rambled enough. I guess we'll start to get into content. Boop, 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 boop. Now, I need to full screen this, actually. Oh, Friendly Geordie's posting his fucking memes about John Barilaro withdrawing the defamation suit. Is pretty funny. Although the reports on what happened seems a little bit... the fuck? Why am I getting a YouTube notification for another thing happening while I'm trying to stream? What is this bullshit? Oh, it's fucking not even streaming now, and it's from a channel that... Fuck off. That's what happens when you use a... So I use my channel YouTube account to like look at the dregs, and it kind of makes the whole... What would you call it? The algorithm not particularly accurate to my taste. I feel like this needs to... That's better, right? Especially when I'm turning this way and then leaning a bit forward. It's so hard to frame yourself because like you'll frame yourself and then you'll just start doing other shit. Suddenly, you ain't framed no more. All right, let's do some content. Fucking, we might as well. Oh, that's right. That's why Twitter was open here, because I needed to find the tweet that started it all for me. Not all of it, but like started this discussion. Well, I say discussion, that indicates other people are involved, but this is just me shouting into the void. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is walkable cities and why I think that a walkable city is the best type of city. And biases up front. I am precluded from driving due to poor eyesight, so I'll never drive a car. I was going to say I never own a car, but I kind of co-own a car with my partner because I pay for 1/3 of the running costs of the car that she drives, because she drives me places, and I benefit from it materially. So I have a very strong preference for pedestrian and bicycling and essentially anything that doesn't require a license to get around. Public transport as well. I think public transport is a key to having a thriving and healthy city and social sort of network for people to get around and do things and live their best lives. So I came across a tweet today, and God bless the internet. God bless the internet. Here's the tweet. What are your favorite eye-opening depiction of how we let cars dominate our streets? Here's mine. And it is a picture of, you can see the picture, right? It is a picture of, the normal kind of city block that we might see, where the road is completely erased, leaving a chasm, to really starkly contrast what the spaces are that are allocated to pedestrians versus the spaces that are allocated to cars. Now, I really grok with this. This resonates with me for the reasons that I've stated earlier. And it's not just because I selfishly think that, pedestrians should be number one when it comes to our spaces in public areas, but it's because I've been to places around the world where pedestrians and cars actually coexist a little bit more neatly than they do in places like Australia and America and England, and I don't want to characterize it as the West because I don't think it's a West-East dynamic or anything like that, but certainly Eastern countries, Asian countries, I find tend to have a bit more walkability. But at the same time, Scotland, I found, was a very incredibly good walkable city. So to me, this is an innocuous sentiment. Like, hey, wouldn't it be nice if we as pedestrians had a bit more of a less antagonistic method of navigating cityscapes and public areas? Holy shit, this is not a uncontroversial statement, apparently. So you all on the replies are salty because you don't have a driver's license. Cars are extremely convenient as you don't have to depend on the schedule of bus, trains, and you don't have to be around annoying people. Oh, you don't have to be around annoying people, not around annoying. Okay. In fact, where I live, they don't hire you in certain jobs. Oh wait, this is a whole stream of thought. Let's go. Wait, one of X. Where's the rest? Here we go. If you don't have your own car, because certain jobs require being able to travel to any location at any time, and with bus, trains is more complicated and you waste more time. Plus, trains and bus only works well in big cities where everything is well designed and connected. For small towns and rural areas where you can use a bus or train, it is much, much more limited than those big cities. So a car solves you trouble. Okay, whatever. Combination between the writing there and the thing about what do we got here? You can't always use one at all times in small towns. We get stuck paying money we don't necessarily have for fuel and a million repairs. No money for a new car means a new car that doesn't need them because the roads are designed only for that, not bicycle and walking. True, very true. So the issue here is that this person in particular, there's a few things that I take issue with, right? So let's go back up to why aren't these tweets connected? It kind of annoys me. So cars are extremely convenient as you don't have to depend on the schedule of buses and trains, and you don't have to be around annoying people. Now, look, everything's anecdotal, but in a good system and a well-connected system and an efficient system, hell, Brisbane, I live in Brisbane in Queensland, our public transport is pretty bad. So when I look at the comparisons of it compared to places like London, like Tokyo, like Singapore, like Seoul, even places like Rome, the public transport here is really bad. So we essentially have railway tracks that go from north to south, and then they either splinter out east or west. There's no circle line in Brisbane, so there's no line that will take you between sort of branching train stations. So, for example, if you were to get from Petrie to Ferny Grove, you'd have to go most of the way into the city, transfer, and get out again. And so the point being is that the anecdotal experience I'm about to relate is not one that is typically of a high quality public transport system, but still, it is quicker for me to get to the city than it is by train than it is to drive to the city in most cases. Now, granted, I live 10 to 15 kilometers out of the city. We'll give a nice big radius there. But the thing with cars is that to get in a car and to get to where you're going, and particularly when you're going into the CBD and having to find a parking space where you have to navigate a car park lock and all that sort of stuff, the good thing about trains and public transport generally is that you get on it at the initial stop and you get off right in the center of the city. So it saves a lot of time that you're not having to worry about in cars. Now, that is not going to make sense for all people. I accept that. The thing is, though, that city design is what makes this work. It's not that it's impossible for it to work in most places. It's that most places actively seek to solve transport issues through roads, not through public infrastructure. And it's not even just cars. So, for example, I also am in the incredibly privileged position of when I go to work every day, I actually have the opportunity to walk to work, and it's a 45-minute walk, and it is basically following a beautiful green path from almost my front door. I think I have to cross 2 roads, and then I'm on a footpath / bicycle path that will take me directly to the back door of my employer, and I cross 1 additional road over that time. And it is one of the best ways for me to start the day. Now, that is something that has been retrofitted to Brisbane. As Grumpy Old Dave, as you say, city design has been antagonistic to non-driving citizens for a long time. And in a country as young as Australia, I think it's I can feel it pretty badly now. In saying that, I've seen some pretty shocking designs in American cities, and we're going to look at one of those shortly. So I'm not going to say we've got it the worst, but I can tell you that there are times when I've tried to get from A to B, and it has been difficult to find an actual footpath that will take me there safely. And that involves things like, if it was something as simple as just a sidewalk that was safe, instead of one that was tiny and was basically no pedestrians across this particular short bridge that you've then got to go around and stuff. Like stupid things like that I think are just laziness when the assumption is that everyone's going to drive everywhere. On top of that, I honestly, if you have a license and you have a car, I would almost guarantee all of you drive distances that you should fucking walk. Now, I'm going to sit on my high throne and say here, you know what? Fuck is, I do. I walk my 45 to 50 minute walk to and from work almost every day. In September, my stats on Google locations was 171 kilometers walking versus 180 kilometers driving. So I still use cars, right? So none of this is about saying that there's no cars to be used. This is all about saying what we prioritize in terms of what is accommodated for in those spaces. And we don't accommodate pedestrians by turning away cars. We need to integrate them. Japan, actually, I actually really like the way they're set up in Japan. Yes, I'm a weeb. Yes, I might just be simping for Japan because I like the maid cafes, but whatever. I still think I've got a good argument in that the way their roads are set up in I'll say in Tokyo. Like let's think about Tokyo because I'm a bit more familiar with Tokyo, and to be honest, I'm not entirely sure if they follow this pattern in all prefectures in Japan. Tokyo will have the major streets where cars will be doing their medium distance traveling, and they are the sort of roads that we might be familiar with here in Australia, where they're multi-lanes, and they just cover the entire blocks and they cover long distances, and that's where you go to get into the general direction that you want to travel. Within a block, though, instead of having the same style of road where it is exclusively for the use of cars, they turn the interior of blocks, where you still got cars, roads that cars need to drive down, they become shared spaces, pedestrian and cars. Now, obviously, you can't just turn Australian cities into that model. That's ridiculous, of course, because there's a whole social component to learning and being used to driving in those circumstances. But I think it's really a lot more enjoyable to walk around when you've got those great distances in the interior of blocks that are pedestrian friendly and help you get around. In Japan, for example, I can get from, what was it? I walked from Akihabara to Asakusa Shrine. No, it was the other way. It was from Asakusa Shrine to Akihabara. I think it was about a 2-hour walk or something ridiculous. But in that big metropolitan city, it was just walkable. I could just walk through it. And we're not talking about these utopian green spaces where there's just grass and trees everywhere and there's no cars to be seen. This is just thoughtful civic design that accommodates both cars and pedestrians. This is a big tangent from here where, you know, the assumption is that because cars are so convenient that we can't think about anything else. Or I do hate the idea of like being on public transport is somehow annoying because people are gross, and like there's this perception that because, you know, there's a lower socio-economic group that ride on public transport, particularly at certain times of the day, that it's sort of beneath people to catch a train. I remember working with people that are a bit like that, and like this is a workplace that was literally right across the road from like a train station that was connected to just about every train line in like Brisbane. Like literally we had someone coming from the Gold Coast that could get a train directly to the front door of where we worked, and people were still like, ew, a train? Gross. I hate that. I hate that so much, that idea. But if we go down here, like I don't understand why they're talking about, like, it's like they're bragging that where they live is so fucked when it comes to people that don't drive, that even jobs will be like, hey, if you don't have a license, we're not going to hire you. Now, that hits me pretty hard because there's a lot of jobs that I have not had the opportunity to apply for because they required licenses. And that sucks, but I get it sometimes. Sometimes there's a genuine need, but I think there's a perception as well that people can't get around without a car. And I'm sure there's more than a couple of jobs that I was precluded from because of that requirement that I would have been able to be fine on as well. Trains and bus only works well in big cities where everything is well designed. See, here's where they're missing is that when it's not a big city, then you shouldn't need the bus and the trains. So when I lived in Edinburgh for about a year, that's not a small city, but it's certainly no London or Tokyo or Sydney or anything like that. I lived there with 4 friends and one fuckwit I hated. And while there, we worked, well, I worked lots of different jobs. So I was doing temping for a while where I'd end up working out near the airport for a little while. I think I worked technically in a military supply company. Like there was a jet at the front that was like mounted as a statue. But like I was off in a satellite car park and I'd have to count the cars every hour and just generally just be a presence so I guess people wouldn't fucking steal from the cars. Then I might be doing some work at a couple of shops. I think cash converters. I did like 2 days before I quit there because it was horrible. And then there was also on Castle Road, working at the souvenir shops for a couple of days as well, before I ended up working for a charity. Anyway, all that work across all that space in Edinburgh from one side to the other. But because Edinburgh is naturally a walkable city where the density of the space is close together, I could walk everywhere. I could walk to work. I walked to that job where I was working for like insulation charity government subsidy program place. Knocking on doors was the job, but I could walk to the office. The places where I had to get a bus, because everything's central. Where you are, there are buses that take you directly to where you need to go. So it doesn't need to be a big city. It can be a perfectly compact city that then is able to more efficiently get people around because it is not this horrible suburban sprawl. I bought a house last year. I say house. I bought a unit last year. Yes, mock me, roast me. Great. It's a home. It's not an investment. But one of the things we were looking at, and the first thing we tried to buy, was a block of land and the intent to build a house, which would have been a horrible idea. I'm glad it didn't pan out. But because of my position and not being able to get a license, we had really limited options. Like literally, we're talking about me and my wife, God bless my wife for sticking with me, because we probably spent $100,000 more than what we would have had to get something of the same or better quality if we both could drive. But because I need to be close to a train station, that just wasn't possible. Now, we were flexible enough that the first thing we looked at, and I'm happy to say this because I don't live anywhere near here, this is where we were trying to live, was out at Rothwell, which is North Brisbane. Technically not Brisbane. It's the Shire is Moreton Bay Shire. So slightly different public holidays, which get a bit awkward with public transport. But we tried to buy a block of land out there, which was going to be probably a 20-minute walk to the train station, and then another 60-minute, thereabouts, train trip to the city. And when you add on to the fact that you don't get to the train station and walk immediately onto a train, you might add another 5 to 15 minutes, depending on whether you just miss a train or get there just in time. You know, we're talking about 160 minutes or something for me to get to the predominant place that I'm likely to get work. And my wife would be in a similar situation. Where did she work at the time, actually? I think she worked in the CBD. So she would have been in a similar circumstance. That's because, like, it just... It really frustrates me to see that sort of design in cities. And, like, this is the crazy thing about that particular block of land. Like, there's a... let me see if I can find it, actually. There's like a service station, and there's like Guzman and Gomez, a Carl's Jr., a Starbucks. Like there's a set of shops there. And during our during our time checking out the property and walking around the area and deciding whether or not we're going to live there, we actually obviously went to get some Starbucks and Guzman and Gomez at one stage. And so we went to this here. So this isn't a park, right? It looks like grass, but it's not grass. It's where's sunlight? Oh, I haven't done this in here we go. Yeah, there we go. Oh, this is old. Oh, that's why it's green. So we tried to buy here. Oh wow, this really is old. This is ancient. Google, what the fuck? I'm pretty sure it was around there. Anyway, well, I'm not going to be able to show the example, but basically the Guzman and Gomez, which is here in current day Brisbane, not in the past. Queensland Globe. Never heard of Queensland Globe. Yeah, I'll tick that, whatever that was. Do we search here? Queenslander. Holy shit. Mackay. That brings back memories. Gladstone. Holy shit. No, that's Moreton Bay, isn't it? Alright, let's go. It's around here, I think. Oh, come on. Find it. Wait, Deception Bay Road. That's not the right road. Alright, come on. Lot and plan number. Holy shit, this is fancy. Oh, cool. We can copy it like that. Street address. Let's go. Here we go. Here's this fucking... Whoa. And this isn't Google. Holy shit. So here's the Guzman. Here's the Starbucks. I think that's a car wash. And then we've got like the service station here for petrol and stuff. So the land... Oh, this must have been the land, actually. Yeah, this is it. We tried to buy this. I'm pretty sure it's that one. Something like that. Heartbroken it didn't work out, but hey. Well, actually, no, I'm not. I'm glad it didn't work out. Fuck it. Because here... Was it here? There's a direction here somewhere. Ah, here we go. So if you come out of this Guzman and Gomez down here and you walk down here, there is no way to cross through here as a pedestrian. Like, that's all nature strip. That's all nature strip. You got cars coming in and out for petrol. Like, they didn't think when they were designing this to put a fucking path right here. Like, path, and connect it up, and then just put a crossing in here somewhere. Like, this blew my mind in this particular area. I was like, holy shit, why the fuck have they got this? And like, this is what's ridiculous, right? This is set up in the middle of look, there's all residential places here. Like, people will be walking here all the fucking time, and you've got like a main crossing here that you can't cross through. Now here, technically, yeah, that's fine. You can get across there, and you got this path here, but then that just goes there and it ends. Like, how the fuck are you meant to get through here? They're expecting pedestrians. Sorry if I'm scrolling around too much. It's my first-person reflexes. First-person shooter reflexes. They're expecting a pedestrian. If they want to go here... Oh, there's a path through there, actually. Anyway. I was here, and like a fucking novice, thinking I'll just go along here, cross through there. I found myself... Yeah. Look, I'm complaining about nothing, but the point is that it's just shitty design. Anyway, let's have a look at this. This is probably the best video I've seen on Walkable Cities. I love it. It's amazing. Oh, we need some volume. Wait, do we? Let me listen to the mix. Yes, we do. Sorry. That was the wrong one. Wait, is it? Maybe there's no sound going through at all. See, having visual sound indicators, they're going to save you. All right, that's all right. We can fix this. We can fix this. It'll just be easier to fix on my main monitor. How did Chrome come out of my sound pipe? Crazy. Let's put it through Wavelink game. Sure, why not?
Pets.com, because pets can't drive.
Oh yeah, oh, this is my kind of party. Oh yeah.
I was laid off from my first job out of school, and I was left unemployed for a very long time. When I finally did find a job, it was at a significantly lower salary than what I was earning before. There's simply no way I could have gotten through that time.
Wait, is this the right video, or did we accidentally go somewhere else? Yeah, I think we clicked the wrong one. Wait, maybe that is it.
There's an overwhelming sameness between almost all cities in the US and Canada, primarily due to their car-centric design. In the end, I decided to live in downtown Toronto. This was a place that was
wheelchair
friendly,
friendly,
but I didn't really know why at the time.
Like
I just knew I liked it a lot more than
okay,
suburbia.
walkable might be a misnomer in that sense.
Incidentally, when I lived in downtown Toronto, I was able to easily live car-free.
Car-free, let's go.
And this allowed me to save huge amounts of money when I was young. After the dot-com crash of 2000,
Pets.com, because pets can't drive.
Oh yeah, oh, this is my kind of party. Oh yeah.
I was laid off from my first job out of school, and I was left unemployed for a very long time. When I finally did find a job, it was at a significantly lower salary than what I was earning before. There's simply no way I could have gotten through that time in my life if I had to own a car to buy food, to apply for unemployment benefits, to go to job interviews, and to go to work. This is one of the reasons why I'm so hostile towards car-dependent places.
Thank you.
Because they are burdening everyone with thousands of dollars per year for the cost of an automobile just so that they can work and feed themselves.
I have always been grateful for the fact that I have not had to pay for a car for the majority of my life. It is only in the last 2.5 years I've started contributing to the cost of a car. It kind of sucks. It's fair, but it kind of sucks.
This is fundamentally wrong. Nobody should have to own a car just to participate in society, and designing a city that way on purpose is criminal.
I love this guy.
But what really opened my eyes is
cool.
when I got a job that required me to travel. Suddenly I was being sent to the UK, Germany, Taiwan, Japan, and all over the United States. I started realizing that there was a whole world of interesting cities out there.
See, look at that.
And they weren't...
Ah, damn it. The scrubbing. Scrub. Ah, we've gone past it. Like that. That's what I love. Those big open spaces. Like, obviously, at the moment, that's probably not acting as a shared path. Like, that's probably a street that's been temporarily closed off. Looks like it's in Korea. I guess Seoul. But, like, in Japan, in Akihabara, on Sundays, they close off one of their main streets so that there's more room for people to sort of move around and, you know, when the place gets a bit bustling, a bit hustling, you know?
There was a whole world of interesting cities out there, and they weren't all the same car-centric sprawl of the GTA or the Bay Area.
Oh, markets. I remember
During
markets.
this time, I traveled excessively for both personal and business trips. There was a period of several years where I wasn't in the same time zone for more than about 3 weeks at a time. One thing this insane amount of travel did provide me with was the opportunity to see how...
Having the confidence to, like, ride a bicycle near trams like that would take a lot for me to get used to, because I would be, it's a little bit freaky to me, but hey, it's a cultural thing, right? You got to learn, you grow up with it, and you become more confident with it.
How other people lived all over the world. I wasn't going to places as a tourist. I was going to where people actually lived and worked. I was taking local trains in Tokyo. I was stuck in rush hour traffic in Boston. I was taking the S-Bahn in Berlin. I was taking taxis from factories in Shenzhen.
Those trains were great.
And I was going between these drastically different cities on a nearly weekly basis. It was amazing to me to see how different all of these cities were and the different ways that people lived. But at the time, I never really thought about why this was the case.
I bet it had.
Like most people, I assumed it was for cultural reasons or due to the weather and local environment, because I was completely ignorant.
Osaka. That's Osaka. I can read that. Fucking yes. Learning Japanese is good. I mean, you could probably tell, most people could probably tell it's Osaka just by seeing it. It looks like Dotonbori or whatever.
Urban planning. That all changed during a trip to Houston.
Look at that. Like,
I was in the middle of an around-the-world trip.
Concrete.
These are discounted tickets for traveling to multiple cities, but you need to travel only in one global direction. Always east or always west. Until you all the way
that's
around
what the tram thing is, like,
for
me
most
being
of my
irrational
trip, I had taken public
because I'm unfamiliar with
in
trams.
the cities I had visited. But I'd been to Houston many times before, and
part of my irrational fear of, like, riding near trams or next to trams probably more comes from my time in Amsterdam, where because Amsterdam drives on the incorrect side of the road because they don't drive on the left, I had not grokked into my head when I was crossing the tram track, the road, the tram track. I was looking left and then going, forgetting that the tram was coming from the other direction. That actually almost got one of my travel companions. Like, they probably just would have been, you know, knocked back a bit and they would have been fine. But yeah, it gave us a bit more anxiety dealing with the roads and stuff. Actually, yeah, because it was a bike path, a tram, a road, a tram, a bike path, and then the pedestrian path. So they were tough to cross for us silly left lane people, you know?
I knew I needed to rent a car. However, I had met up with some coworkers for this leg of the journey, so we shared one car between the three of us.
That's
we had
big
a day
footage,
off
not
on
a
Sunday, and my coworkers had taken the car.
It was before the coffee shop. After you leave the coffee shop, you don't give a shit.
My suitcase was falling apart,
and
so I searched for a
that particular part of Amsterdam is very walkable.
Luggage shop nearby. Thankfully, there was one 800 meters away. No problem.
This is like the hell version of what I was talking about.
Terrible mistake. I
I love
exited
this
the
story.
hotel to find that it was on a street with no sidewalk.
This encapsulates everything I hate about like antagonistic design when it comes to pedestrians.
None at all. So I crossed through the adjacent parking lots. It is disturbingly common to find places without any sidewalks in American suburbia. But I had grown up in a car-infested city, so I was used to it. As I got out onto the main road, there was a sidewalk. I didn't know it at the time, but this road is what Strong Towns refers to as a strode, a street that is designed like a road,
Jesus.
and in doing so is expensive, inefficient, and dangerous. This walk was pretty uncomfortable. The weather was nice, but there were no trees to provide any shade. The landscape was boring and I was surrounded by asphalt. All of the businesses I passed were
Look at that
far in
hell.
the distance, behind giant parking lots, and the signs were all oversized and only meant to be read while driving. In a place like this, you're walking next to polluted air and the constant noise from high-speed vehicles, and you always need to be alert for any cars going in and out of driveways, as drivers are only looking at oncoming traffic. They are not looking for pedestrians. And in America, people will blame you if you're hit by a car. Stoplights are long,
They do that in a lot of places, not just America.
and there are too many of them. And because cars can turn right on red lights in America, you have to be hyper
Is that even a pedestrian crossing? Yeah, it is. Okay, it's just different
aware
to us.
when-
I'm used to the zebra lines and stuff, you know.
crossing the strode. This is the kind of pedestrian experience that people who never walk anywhere think is acceptable.
Yeah, true.
But then I got to this spot and the sidewalk just ended.
So now I'm looking at this and it's triggering my memory. There is something like this near where I live. So if I was to walk towards a city, I can follow the main road and it is, okay, granted there are footpaths, right? I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it's like the same hellhole that what's on this video. But if I want to travel southbound on the road that I live near, I will in very quick order come up against a shopping center where there is no footpath that follows the road on the left-hand side. The footpath is on the other side, on the opposite side of the road, but if I don't need to go to that side of the road, like, why make me cross the road? So I just have to cross the road again in another 200 meters to get back on the correct side of the road. Because they decided not to bother making a footpath, I either have to go into the shopping center and follow the shopping center to the opposite side and then come back out where it reconnects to a new footpath, or I need to cross to the other side of the road. Like, these stupid small little design choices, which the ridiculous thing is, like, the council could actually stipulate to the developer, you must put a footpath in when you develop this particular piece of land into a shopping center. And they decided, well, who gives a shit? We're going to put a car park there. Cars are going to go there and cars are going to park. Pedestrians, there's a footpath on the other side of the road, or they can walk through the shopping center. It's, Well, wait. When he says there's nowhere to walk, he gets
warning,
worse than this.
no alternative.
I know you're probably being
It was
sarcastic.
just gone. But there was a well-trodden path through the grass, so I followed it.
I say
to this
probably.
bridge,
Like, yes, you'd be.
where
Look at
there
that.
was nothing.
I've been on bridges like that. Oh my god.
As I shimmied along the curb next to the guardrail, with high-speed cars and trucks passing by me, I thought about how ridiculous this was. I was balanced.
One of the places that's been worst for that has been Bali. When I was looking for some pork ribs, I think, and no, it was babaguling, right? So one of Bali's specialty foods is babaguling, which is roast pig. It's a type of roast pig because I think the pork there is meant to be really good because of the quality of their pigs. Because it's a local food, it's not a tourist food, because I'm one of those snobby tourists that goes there and eats the local cuisine. The places that you'll find babaguling are typically not in the tourist areas. So it's not the beachfront where you've got all these nice small laneway, pedestrian shared roads and stuff to walk along. It's in like the semi-industrial areas where people that are like the Balinese people that are actually working as like tuk-tuk drivers or tour guides or whatever else they're doing. Like when they're driving between home and work, they can stop at these places to get some babaguling. And like it'll get you the nice sweet pork meat. You'll get the crackling. There'll be chili that is like almost too hot for me, which I love. and there'll be like a clear pork soup and stuff. And to get to one of those places, I had to walk on a road like this because we didn't have a car. We didn't hire a car in Bali. Like, we sit by the fucking beach. And to cross the road, there was literally no crossings. There was nowhere for a pedestrian to safely cross. And we just had to wait for ages. And we kept following the road, trying to find another place to cross. And would get to a part of the road that was actually blocked off. And it was a nightmare. It was basically this trip here, but it was in Bali.
Balancing on a few centimeters of curb while crossing a 28-meter bridge with 7 lanes of car traffic.
I hate that pedestrian lights
given to anybody
don't
who wasn't
automatically
in the car,
turn
and
green.
There was no other alternative for
when it's
walking.
when appropriate. Like, when you get to a crossing as a pedestrian and you hit the button at the same time that the parallel road goes green, and you should be able to cross safely if you had pressed the button a second before. Why isn't that automatic? Why are the pedestrian lights not part of the traffic light rotation without needing user input? And to continue this rant, as I've mentioned, I'm visually impaired. I live with not an expectation, but an understanding that there is a non-zero chance that one day I will not be able to see. And how often those fucking lights, pedestrian buttons, do not have the sounds turned on? Why? Why are they not always on? Why is it not, like, it's actually possible on a glary day, if it's a 3-lane road, that it is difficult for me to make out the actual red and green pedestrian dudes, ladies, people. And the fucking things don't always make a sound. This car culture shits me to tears.
At that moment, I decided that if I lived through this walk, I wanted to live in a place that was the exact opposite of a place like this. When I made it to the other side, there was also no sidewalk, of course.
Look, still no
and I
pathways.
crossed through some more parking lots to get to the luggage shop. Needless to say, I took a cab back to the hotel. Yeah,
800 meters.
I took a taxi to go
800 meters.
In the United States, over 45% of car trips are 3 miles or less than 5 kilometers. That's insane. Europeans assume that Americans...
So I know that, the position, if it is 5 kilometers or less, you should walk. I get it. Not everyone has got an hour to walk, because a 5 kilometer trip by foot is about an hour. 3 kilometers though, I think getting in the car, unless you're trying to cart back a lot of items, is starting to push it. I tell you what, the theoretical health benefits from walking more, I think, would be worth it for the vast majority of people who will get in their car over 1 kilometer. I don't know how to convert that to feet. 1 kilometer is what? A third of a mile, whatever that is in feet. I'm not going to do it on stream because it's not an OnlyFans stream, but the size of my calves are fucking massive. Partially because I rode my bike a lot when I was in high school. Because again, that's how you get around when you're a fucking kid. And when you're a kid, you don't need a license. You get the fuck around. But when you grow up, people seem to have got their... Like, I remember when I was in my sort of late teens, early 20s, people got fat when they got their license. Not everyone, obviously, but like there was a trend that when you get your license, people just stopped walking. And it's like... Pokemon Go helped me discover walkability in my city, in Brisbane at least. Like I discovered a lot of pathways. Like I can walk a shockingly long distance on paths in Brisbane. So we're not imperfect, but at the same time, there are major roads. So Gympie Road. Anyone that knows Brisbane knows Gympie Road. I would never ride my bicycle along Gympie Road. For one, I don't believe there's actually a bike path integrated into that road, even though it's a major arterial roadway through the Brisbane northern suburbs. And 2, I don't trust drivers because Australian drivers are super okay, no, I'm not going to generalize. A not insignificant portion of Australian drivers are incredibly antagonistic to cyclists and believe that cyclists should be doing things like paying registration, and that they cause accidents and that they take up too much space on the road and that they're a hindrance and all this sort of like stuff. 3,300 feet is about a kilometer, so that makes it what? Oh yeah, I was saying 1 kilometer. All right, there, 3,300 feet. Driverless electric cars. I have always had a optimism that one day they. So there's public transport, right? That we have. So trains, buses, that sort of stuff. I know that there are cities out there and like civic designers that have this dream that one day systems will be replaced with personal rapid transport, PRT. And that is when we start looking at things like driverless electric cars to basically, like, I know Uber. Is it Uber or Tesla? I know Tesla's working on the driverless car technology, but I don't know if Uber is also... I think Uber has got their eye and they may be working towards like Uber without drivers. Like you just call your Uber and it doesn't need a driver, so the car will just show up and take you where you need to go. And there's all this really, granted, utopian optimism around, like, you know what, we use our cars 5% of the time and the other 95% of the time they're parked not doing anything. So imagine if instead of owning a car, you just paid for the 5% of the time you need the car, and you know it's cheaper and everyone gets around quicker and it's less wastage and all this sort of stuff. I'm a bit doomer on whether or not socially people accept that, because I know that people get a lot of value out of car ownership, having their own car that they, you know, we know cars are a personal space. So we know that when people are in a car, they treat it like they're in private. And that's, you know, road rage and bad behavior and shit, obviously. But I mean, that's also a reflection of the fact that people feel like the car is part of, you know, their... To say part of their body might be taking it a bit too far, but you know what I mean? Like, people have a connection, like they name their cars, they get fond about their cars, they don't like giving their cars up all the time. So I'm not sure that optimism that cars can become more transmissible amongst the population, despite the fact that it probably is objectively better in terms of, you know, environmental impact and cost effectiveness and stuff like that. It's just not going to take over the value. One thing I did see, I've never seen this before, and today someone showed me that there's actually let's watch the video. Look, we've probably got what we needed to get out of this video. I think it's a great video. So the channel is Not Just Bikes. It's a fantastic channel. I think this is the most viral video he's done. Yes, you can post a... I think you can post a link. Post a link and see if it works. Sorry, I'm not sure. I haven't done a lot of moderation on YouTube chat because I spend most of my time on Twitch. Or I've been on channels where other people have been doing moderation and stuff. But yeah, go for it. Shit, what was the name of it? Drones are being used, like F1 drones have become like a thing while I wasn't looking. Like I've got a drone that I used to fly a reasonable amount, but I haven't flown it for a while, to be fair. What was the name of it? Here we go. Airspeeder. Don't tell on me with my search history. Here we go. Okay, I haven't seen this video. And I remembered to put the video sharing on. I haven't seen this video, but like I think that moderator. Oh, do I have trust issues? All right. I hate YouTube's tools for dealing with people. Oh, God damn it. So I have to have the chat blown up so much to see it that I can't actually see the tool to mod. Wait, there we go. Now I can. All right, there you go. Temporary mod status to post a link. While you're posting a link, we're going to watch this video because I haven't seen it yet. One of my coworkers told me about it and I got super excited. So I like drones. I think drones are great. And I think that personal rapid transport in the form of drones. I admit it's Jetsons shit, but holy crap. So this was like an F1 race, but with drones. Look at that. That's right, it was a drag race. Bravo team wins. Congratulations, Bravo team. And they got a prop. What's with that? That to me is really exciting. Like that, I look forward to. The idea of those is that they will be banned in actual races moving forward, but in that case, they weren't manned. Okay, this video looks familiar. I think I've seen this video. That's all right. We can still watch it. Actually, because that opened in Edge, I need to open it in Chrome so that the audio is correct.
All right, I'm up.
Shut it. I feel like I've seen this. All right, this is exciting. God, YouTube, I wish you had a fucking chat program that I could use. Wait. Why did my chat unpop out? Mother lover. Pop out chat again, please. Thank you. Yeah, so technically where's my drone? I don't know where it is. My room's still a mess. Like, all I've got is the Spark. It does have a racing mode on it, but yeah, I don't. The idea that drone technology is at the point where they can feasibly talk about having pilots racing them, like that sort of suggests to me that the technology is actually getting to the point where it's almost scalable. For I shouldn't alt tab when I'm showing that screen because it shows the alt tab. Like that technology is hopefully going to scale really quickly to like more standard use. Really cool. Obviously, those drones wouldn't work in a everyday sense because they only had 4 propellers, and I know that 4 propellers, 1 failure, whole thing goes down. So like more standard use drones are going to need like extra propellers, so if there's a failure, it can register the failure and safely land still. So. All right, let's go.
About to go for my first ever ride in a fully autonomous vehicle. Whoa, no driver.
This is beyond 2000 shit. I love it.
All right.
Good morning, Derek. This car is all yours with no one up front.
I really like the idea of fully autonomous vehicles, but it's weird getting into a car with no driver and just trusting the car.
I would be creepy.
I'm gonna report back how this ride goes, and how I feel about it. Oh, but full disclosure, this video is sponsored by Waymo.
You'd want like a doll or something in the front, like something to feel like there's someone in control. Like not a doll, like a
start ride.
A mannequin pretending to drive.
Make sure your seatbelt is fastened. For any questions, press the help button to speak with a rider support agent.
Hey Google,
okay.
Take
now
me
let's see where we
to
go. It's
Starbucks.
looking at this car coming here. What's it gonna do? And it pulls in very smoothly behind it. No.
What are the laws around driverless vehicles? I would have thought it would be illegal. Oh, maybe there's no law against it because, like, why would you make a law against driving a car without a driver? Since that's technically probably impossible when the laws were created.
No problems. Did not turn into
Breaks my mind a
traffic.
little bit.
Waited until the cars went, and then it turned. I like that. I polled YouTube viewers about autonomous vehicles, and half of you are excited and ready for them to be on the roads, but
I'll do it.
over 40% said you
100%.
thought the technology was still over 10 years away. And for those people, I have news. which is that, well, there is no driver in this car. I'm currently inside a fully autonomous vehicle driving around a suburb of Phoenix, Arizona.
Are they Clorox wipes or something?
Now, I get that in some parts of the world, like the roads aren't well enough maintained and, you know, people don't stay in their lane necessarily. And so it'd be very hard for a computer to drive there. But at least under good conditions, the technology is currently functional.
Fucking eyeball.
Now, Waymo started out as the Google self-driving car project, with what is possibly one of the cutest cars ever made.
See, small stuff like that to get people around. That'd be pretty cool.
Fully autonomous vehicle. Back in October 2015, this car went on a public road ridden by Steve Mann, who has a disability. He is legally blind, but he could get around in this thing, which is affectionately known as the Firefly. This is such a simple vehicle. There's basically nothing in here. There's no steering wheel, no dashboard. This car is super basic. There is no...
See, I wonder how much you'd save in a car that, like, took all that out. Like, obviously, it's still going to have guts and, like, you know, all the, like, obviously the, like, axles, wheels, motors, all that sort of stuff. But, like, once you take out, like, the dashboard components and stuff, like, there's got to be some saving there.
No AC, but there is an emergency stop button. That's my favorite button in the car. It reminds me of elevators. You know, one of the important measures that they had to put in automatic elevators was a big red stop button. Did you know that before the 1940s, almost all elevators had drivers in them? And when people started putting in driverless elevators, well, the public was very concerned and they didn't want to ride in those elevators. There was one guy who was like, I don't care if I have to walk up 12 flights of stairs for the rest of my life. I'm not taking that elevator. And adoption was slow. I mean, they tried to advertise to help people understand.
Is he going to cover this? Or do I get to add my own little elevator fact? Early elevators were designed to look like rooms. So they had like the lamps and the counters and like the wood paneling and stuff like that. And that was to try and assuage people's anxiety for riding them, because people were a bit freaked out about being in an elevator. Because, yeah, you're in a giant like metal box that could fall from a cable or a rope or God knows what was connecting it when you're obviously don't know how elevators are made. But, yeah, they're designed to look like rooms so that people would be more comfortable riding them.
That it was in fact safe, but ultimately there was an elevator drivers strike in New York City, and that really annoyed people and it helped the adoption of automated elevators. If you found a driver in an elevator today, you would wonder, why are they there? Now you might think an elevator is just so simple. I mean, it is effectively one-dimensional motion, but you know, airplanes are also flown extensively by computers. I saw this particular landing where a plane is coming into Vienna and it's just so foggy that the pilots can see almost nothing. I mean, this is the view from the cockpit. And yet they make a textbook landing right on target. So how do they do it? The answer is the pilots didn't do it. It was a Cat 3 auto-land procedure. The plane just came in and landed itself, essentially. Now, of course, the pilots are important and they're monitoring all of the instruments and controls, but it's actually the plane and its computer getting the plane to land appropriately. I was surprised to learn that humans are much more likely to take manual control and land on sunny days, like July 6th, 2013, when Asiana Airlines Flight 214 was on final approach to San Francisco. Attempting to manually land the plane, the pilot accidentally left the throttle at 0, and by the time they realized and tried to abort the landing, it was too late. The plane crashed into the runway seawall and split in two. 3 people died in the aftermath of this accident. I think the counterintuitive thing is that we expect the humans to be better, particularly in tough situations. But when it comes to airplanes, if it's bad weather, you actually want the plane flying itself. So the obvious next question is, would you want the same thing for cars?
You'd think that computer would be better. So like in drones, we know that they've got like collision avoidance and stuff. And I haven't actually checked, but I know DJI, they announced the Mavic 3, which I think has even more obstacle avoidance features built into it. So there's certainly like, we know that computers and imaging can actually prevent accidents and stuff. So it is interesting that like even intuitively, I sort of feel like, well, if there's a driverless car, I hope it's really safe. But like, let's be real. Human drivers are shit. I guarantee that when driverless cars become more and more common, they're going to be held to a higher standard than people. Whether that's a good thing or not, I mean, I want to say it's not a good thing, but at the same time, like when there's more control over the operation of like the AI in the vehicle, then maybe we should expect, better than just not as bad as humans.
There are all these different levels of autonomy, and everything up to 4 requires a human driver to be, responsible and at the wheel at all times. In the early days of the Google self-driving car project, they had a vehicle that was not yet level 4, so it still required a human driver. They let Google employees borrow the cars, but they still had to be in control of the wheel. And the volunteers were informed that they were responsible for the car at all times and that they would be constantly recorded, like video recorded while they were in the car. But still, within a short period of time, the engineers observed drivers rummaging around in their bags or checking phones, putting on makeup, or even sleeping in the driver's seat. All these drivers were trusting the technology too much, which makes almost fully autonomous vehicles potentially more dangerous than regular cars. I mean, if the driver is distracted or not prepared to take over. So this is why Waymo decided that the only safe way to proceed is with a car that has at least level 4 autonomy.
That's actually an interesting point. Like the idea that you can't half-ass it, because if you half-ass it, people become overly confident. Which is the same way, like where you get things like kind of related to what we've been talking about tonight. There's studies out there for like bicycles and helmet laws when it comes to bicycles. And there's studies that do suggest that when cyclists wear helmets, not only do they engage in potentially more dangerous behavior, but the people around them also engage in more dangerous behavior. So for example, cars are more likely to drive more aggressively and closer to a cyclist when they're wearing a helmet, because there's a perception that they're safe and that they're not going to get hurt if something goes wrong. Whereas countries where there were not mandatory helmet laws for cyclists and being on a bike, there was more defensive driving around cyclists and less risks taken by cyclists, and actually resulted in fewer overall injuries. It gets a bit tricky in the idea that when there is an injury, obviously it's more severe without a helmet. And, I survived a accident where I was hit by a car while I was riding a bike without a helmet on, because fuck me, I was 14. It was after school had finished for the day. And I knew where one of the cute girls broadly lived. I was about to say, I knew where one of the cute girls lived. That sounds really stalkerly. I did not know where she lived, but I knew that when she was walking home, she'd be in that direction. And so I was riding my bike just generally around, hoping to just run into them. Man, that sounds really bad in 2021. This was in like 1999. All right, guys, so just relax. Just relax. But I decided my hair looks nice. If I put a helmet on, it doesn't look as nice. I'm not going to wear a helmet. I'm not going to get hit by a car. But I got $10,000, and then I spent $8,000 of those dollars on Bible college. Just shat that away. And the other $2,000 of that was spent on I think it was a 3 megapixel digital camera, whose pictures I had lost until recently. I found those pictures like 6 months ago in somehow one of my friends in Brisbane, who I knew from Harvey Bay, had a bunch of CDs, including ones full of these photos, in a box under their house. God knows how it got there, but hey, it got there.
This is the depot where the cars go when they're not on the road. And it's also where people monitor all the rides in progress.
Yeah, so that's where my team sits. You see 3 teams basically here. One of the teams is my team of fleet dispatchers. So basically making sure that all the missions are assigned every day and they are completed successfully on road. And then you have the rider support team that takes the call.
Thank you for calling the Waymo Rider Support. This is Beulah. How can I help today?
I just completed my ride, but like, I don't want to get out of the car. I just want to keep driving. Is there a way that I can do that?
Right now, I don't see a trip started. Give me one moment here while I partner with my team, okay?
Okay.
Partner with your team.
Well, I just left all my stuff in the car. I hope it comes back.
Look at that footpath. That's walkable.
I think there's a lot of still resistance in terms of trusting the vehicle, and they ask you like, how does it feel to be in a car without the driver? I was the first person to do public roads, fully driverless ride at night. I always share the experience with them. It takes about 2 minutes for you to completely forget that you're in a driverless vehicle. If the system really provides that feeling,
I reckon I would take to it real quick. Like I reckon, man, I would take a $50,000 car loan out to buy a driverless car.
that you're safe and you see a couple of maneuvers, in less than 2 minutes you're talking to whoever
And then I'd rent it out to Uber to be an Uber driver while I'm working, and it would earn money for me.
is next
That is like a real life money hack.
to you and not paying attention to what's happening anymore.
Whoa.
Tyler, my friend, that is something that is very difficult for anyone to give advice on, particularly since we don't really know each other. If that's something that you generally... I'm going to take it on face value. You probably need to look at talking to like professional services if there's no one else for you to talk to. Like if this is something you are bringing to a YouTube chat, like that's heartbreaking. And I would recommend you go to Google and look for some mental health support services to at least find out what resources are available to you to help you through that.
Oh, it doesn't make the indicator sound, so I just don't know when it's going to turn. But if I was watching the map, I would know. I think we have this bias to believe that we're better at certain tasks than we actually are. Like thinking that people are good at driving. Surveys show 74% of people believe they are above average drivers. Think about that. In the 20th century,
50% of people is the maximum amount of people that can be above average.
60 million people were killed on the road. That's basically an extra world war's worth of deaths. And we really have no one to blame but ourselves. The National Transportation and Safety Board has identified human error as the cause of 94% of accidents. Most of these errors are impossible for a machine to make. Every year, when people are backing out of driveways or parking spaces, in the US, up to 200 people are killed, and it's frequently older people.
Like, let's be real, like 200 people in the US, it's not a high number when it comes to like the cause of death, but when it's something as mundane as like backing out of a like driveway or a car park, like that's such a low, you intuitively think of that as a low stakes maneuver. Holy shit.
People or children, the children of the drivers, it's awful. And it comes down to the fact that we don't have eyes in the back of our head, and even the backup cameras, still have blind spots. But if you have a vehicle that has, LiDAR and radar and 29 cameras,
LiDAR, let's go.
You're just not
Strap an
going
iPad to it.
to hit them. Up here in the very prominent top, there is a 360 LiDAR. So it can see all around the car. It can see up to 300 meters away with the LiDAR. The way the LiDAR works is it shoots out invisible laser beams scanning around millions of times a second, and then it detects the reflection and how long it takes to come back. Allows you to determine how far it is to that object. So what it's doing is like painting a 3D picture of the world. There are 29 cameras around this vehicle, which gives you full 360 vision. It gives you close range vision, what is right next to the car, and also long range vision going out 500 meters. This car could detect a stop sign or a pedestrian 500 meters away. How many of us
meters.
have eyesight that is that good?
Not me.
There's also
Not me.
a microphone up on top to listen to what's happening in the environment, and if there are sirens, then the car will pull over to the side of the road. It's got to be able to respond to emergency vehicles.
The future is here as soon as it gets legislated.
What I want to see here is how does it handle a parking lot where there's
better than my wife.
People driving in unusual ways and
I said that loud enough that I
possibly
hope she heard me.
pedestrians walking around.
But she would agree with me, so it's okay. And it wasn't about gender.
Whoa, that was a sudden stop. The car made a pretty hard stop there. I think it saw that guy with the cart coming up on a pedestrian crosswalk. And one of the interesting things that the vehicle is always doing is not only seeing where things are and where they're going, but also making predictions about where they're likely to go.
That camera he's got is an Insta360, and I have been on the verge of buying one for like years. It's a fucking amazing camera. Thankfully now it's been out long enough that I would not buy it because it'll probably be superseded by something cool, but yeah. Unrelated to the video, but hey, I like to buy cameras.
So this car doesn't just have one potential future. It's constantly imagining, well, he might cross at the crosswalk, or he might keep going, or he might turn left, and so it has to be prepared for all of those different options. And it even weights the options of like how likely it thinks that he's gonna go on the crosswalk versus go straight versus turn. And you can see that with the thickness of the line in the little simulated graphic that they have. A few years back, I think a lot of people were talking about how autonomous vehicles have...
So someone should be able to put this into like Grand Theft Auto to test it, right? Like you'd assume, oh shit, Forza Horizon 5 came out today and I haven't downloaded it yet. But like someone should be able to put these into games to test it's like when they do speedrunning with genetic AI or whatever it's called. Like, you know, when they create like a gene map for like successive generations of AI to learn optimized paths through games. I'm using the wrong words, but it's a cool thing.
Have to figure out who to hit in case of an accident. Like, do they pick the orphan or the nun?
Should the car hit the motorcyclist with a helmet on because his injuries might be less severe? Or should the car hit the motorcyclist who does not have a helmet on because he did not properly protect himself? If cars were programmed to hit the motorcyclist with the helmet, that would mean that in a way, it would become safer to ride without a helmet.
But
that's the trolley problem, isn't it? But like made harder to determine.
The reality is that 99% of accidents aren't like that. Every year, around 1.3 million people are killed on the roads, almost all of them due to human error. If autonomous cars can reduce these fatalities, then the real moral dilemma is not getting them on the road sooner for fear we haven't worked out exactly how they'll react to extremely unlikely hypothetical scenarios. I think humans are becoming worse drivers.
Let's face it too. Like if you're going to talk about the ethics of what decisions should be programmed into a autonomous vehicle, right? At least that can be something that is put towards a committee that is transparently making decisions for how the AI should address certain circumstances. When you're talking about deaths caused on the road by people who are making meat-brain decisions at the drop of a hat, like in the moment, like you gotta, like surely there's no way to sort of refute the idea that people are making decisions based on biases and like their personal preferences. And that on its face is less ethical than any predetermined decision that is made by weighting hypotheticals, you know?
Because we're just so prone to distraction. Think about the main reasons why cars crash. Because people are speeding, they're under the influence, they're distracted. I mean, these sorts of problems an autonomous vehicle would not have. You don't get a distracted driver. The ultimate question, right, that everyone wants to know, that I want to know the answer to is like, as these vehicles stand, are they better than the average human? Not than the best human, but just like an average human, like replacing some random car on the street with one of these vehicles. Does that make the roads safer?
Yes, it does. I think we would never launch a rider-only service if we did not meet that base safety framework.
If that's true, it means like every vehicle that's not on the road is kind of a worse situation. Do you know what I mean?
We are really working really hard to launch this in larger areas and new areas too.
Come to Australia.
We need to have the experience to show the regulators
Do they
why
work
we believe
on the
it's
left-hand side of the
safer.
road?
And for that, you need to be driving miles, a number of miles that you.
And can they dodge kangaroos? Actually, no, I said that as a joke. But like, if you're going to look at this from like Australian point of view, there are roads in Australia where a kangaroo will just be bam right out front. Like, how does it deal with something? I suppose no, that's a ridiculous comparison actually, because a human still has to deal with that. And theoretically, because that LiDAR is 500 meters in front and is 360 degrees, it's going to react sooner. So it's fine. Same with drop bears, because drop bears, like, they're only as high as the fucking trees. Yeah. I retract that.
These vehicles have way more experience than any human driver because they've now accumulated data over 20 million miles of driving on public roads. If you were an average driver, you'd have to drive for 1,000 years to accumulate that sort of experience. And all of that experience can be used to train the systems, to fix the software, and used across all the vehicles in the fleet. In 2019, Waymo released a study of its data over 6.1 million miles of automated driving in the Phoenix, Arizona metropolitan area. Of the 18 total accidents that occurred during the study, none were serious enough to expect significant injury or death. In Waymo's safety report, they found some types of accidents have been completely eliminated by this autonomous driving system. Like, the car doesn't go off the road, and it doesn't hit stationary objects. Humans do those things. If you look at the 8 significant...
We're in the knowledge economy at the moment, but yeah, once AI gets better, we'll end up in the feelings economy, since that'll be what's prioritized.
Significant accidents that happened with Waymo vehicles over the 6 million miles of driving, all 8 of them involve a human driver of another vehicle doing something stupid, like driving on the wrong side of the road, or running a red light, or going through a stop sign.
There's a fucking road near my work that I cross this road. Like, it's a major road. It connects 2 arterial roads, right? And I'm constantly on the lookout for fucking dumbasses that don't realize that when the light is red, that they can't cross over the pedestrian crossing because the pedestrian crossing is green. Like, this is a really weird setup where for some reason it doesn't seem intuitive to the drivers that no, you shouldn't actually keep going when that crossing is activated.
Or failing to yield or going 20 miles per hour over the speed limit. There were 3 incidents involving Waymo vehicles and pedestrians. But in all 3, the Waymo vehicle was stationary and the pedestrian or cyclist skateboarder ran into the vehicle. Waymo also takes some of that real world data and they put it into simulations.
Why didn't the vehicle move?
And they tweak it a bit. So they try adding like a bicyclist, going fast or going slow, or they make the car turn faster or slower. So they change all these parameters and variables and they see what the software will do. And they've trained the software on an additional 20 billion miles of driving, not on the road, but in simulation. So that's 1,000.
Okay. I've figured out what the issue is going to be when these become more and more popular. The people that drive, the cultural drivers, shall we say, they're going to know that these cars will respond to their presence and give way to them. So they're just going to drive aggressively around them to force them to stop, get out of their way so they can keep going. Okay, theoretically, majority of autonomous vehicles, you shouldn't end up with like the type of traffic jams we get. My understanding is that part of the reason we get traffic jams is because in those long stretches of road, because cars are following too close behind each other in most circumstances, what happens is when there's a stop or a slowdown, the cars are braking more aggressively and they're actually, it extends the time that is needed for everyone to stop because they have to be more aggressive about how they, don't run into the person that they're following too closely behind. Whereas if people were actually giving proper space to each other, the impact would be lessened because fewer cars have to slow down at this particular bottleneck, and then fewer cars have to start back up again to keep going once the obstruction is clear. And it broadly means the roads would run faster and more smoothly. Autonomous cars should sort that out, but not necessarily going to be the case. People that are still driving dumb cars, they could just drive as if those autonomous cars aren't there because they're going to get out of the way, right? Like that's going to, how do you sort that out? Like, you would have to make a law against a type of driving that forced autonomous vehicles to off the road, basically. Surely. Auto reporting, yeah, true. Well, that's it. These cars are all linked together. They're all being monitored by a central agency. So you're nicked.
Times more experience again.
The point being is that I have to establish that kind of rule,
when is stepping inside an autonomous car going to feel the same as stepping inside an elevator? Because I think that time may be coming sooner than you think.
5 years?
I like the idea of this technology, but honestly, getting in the car, I wasn't quite sure how it would feel. I was a little bit uncertain. But once I saw it just handles so confidently, like driving is one of those things that I feel like you can't hide whether you're a good or bad driver. It's just like, oh, what's it going to happen when, there's a parked car or a cyclist or a pedestrian? And it just sort of handles all those situations with such confidence and ease that I think, I stopped thinking about it.
After they pass a couple of your mental tests, you're like, I'm good. I think I can. I'll be okay.
Yeah. I felt the same way. I think a lot of people miss the bigger implications of what is achievable once fully autonomous driving is commonplace. Riders with disabilities, seniors, and the blind can get around more easily.
I forgot to put this back.
Transportation will get cheaper.
Think
of all the wasted value in the cars that spend over 95% of their time parked. We can regain a bunch of time and feel happier because commuting and being stuck in traffic sucks.
Let me tell you, I think it's fantastic that whenever I have to travel, because I'm not driving, I have that time to myself. I can do things. I can play games on my phone. I can watch YouTube videos. I can catch up on something on Netflix or Crunchyroll. Like, I think drivers underestimate, like, having access to that time to do things other than focus on the road. Like, if nothing else, think about that. Like, we saw footage where people are doing their makeup, where people are checking their phone, where, don't do work. Like, fuck, like, unless you're being paid, like, unless you clock on when you get in the car, don't do work on your commute. But all the other stuff you can do on your commute, like, I encourage my wife, if she ever has to catch like the train to work or the bus to work or whatever, do your Instagramming, do your TikToking, so you don't feel guilty for doing it at home when you could be doing something else. It's fantastic. Commutes are horrible in a car. Like, I used to live. Yeah, I can give away addresses I lived at 10 years ago. I used to live in Nunda, and that is north of the city, about 5 train stops or something. But I worked in Rothwell, which is where I was showing that Guzman and Starbucks and that sort of nightmare little pedestrian area. And I had to get a train and then a bus to get to work. But occasionally someone would give me a lift. And while, it was nice to get the lift, I could tell that they hated it because, like, they're just stuck in traffic for like 45 minutes on the way to work every day. And if you can get out of this, why wouldn't you? Justify why you want to do that 4 days a week, 5 days a week.
We can reduce traffic because vehicles will have better awareness of each other. You can imagine one day when all the cars are fully autonomous, they can execute a beautiful ballet driving together.
See,
and when
I said that too.
Comes, we can eliminate parking lots and add green spaces to our cities. And most importantly, widespread adoption of autonomous cars could prevent tens of thousands of fatalities in the US alone. When do you think that this will be a reality? Like, clearly it's coming, but when?
If you're talking about big cities, I'm hoping the next 5 years will be really game-changing. Like,
I'm excited to see it.
Me too, believe me. I just don't want to commute to work anymore. I would love to sit in the back seat, do my work on the way there and on the way back.
or do something fun, watch a movie.
Or sleep, yeah.
That is cool. I think that is going to be like game changing to like just accessibility as well. Like, it would take away the isolation that some people can feel when they can't get to places or get to people. Like I hands up, right? One of my closest friends in the world, we live on opposite sides of the city. He lives probably a 45 to 1 hour drive away from me. And not just that, he actually lives so far away that public transport is like kind of untenable. Like public transport to see him would be like basically going to another city. Having an autonomous vehicle, it's like, fuck man, I can grab my Switch, I can jump in the car and, you know, we play some Animal Crossing and before you know it, bam, I'm going to be there. And, you know, more time to hang out, more time to do that. That'd be great. Yeah, Australia is going to be weird because we get things slow. I would hope it wouldn't be 20 years would be devastating because if it's in 20 years, I'll be like 60 almost. 10 years. If I think about how long it took Uber Eats to get here, it was a couple of years, wasn't it? Like, it wasn't that far. And yes, Uber Eats is completely different when it comes to scale and stuff. But at the same time, the advantages and the demand for autonomous vehicles, I think, would be a lot higher. Particularly when it comes to like people being able to use them to, you know, counter like disabilities and stuff. I'd hope that would be a lot more of an incentive for Australia to adopt it. And on top of that, because it would be so on one hand, you would get a lot of lobbying from the car industry for people that are not making autonomous vehicles to push against, but it's not safe. No, we've got to think about this. We've got to do some real proper studies to make sure that they're actually safe. If autonomous vehicles are made by just specific companies, if it turns out to be a technology that's adaptable and like you can buy a Mazda 3 with autonomous driving added on for an extra $10,000 or whatever, or get your Fiat Punto with it added on, like that might be smoother. Man, YouTube chat box, I'm going to kill you. Stop it. See, regional at least, like if it starts in the city centers and then goes to suburbs and then regional, in some ways, so I grew up in Hervey Bay and I was a little less affected by needing to drive because again, like those smaller cities, they're sort of compact. Like I would ride from one side of the city to the other to rent The Legend of Zelda on Super Nintendo for the weekend. Like it would take 20 minutes for me to ride from like almost literally one side to the other side. Whereas in the cities, you've got these massive distances where like, you know, in Brisbane, people work in like Ipswich. They live in like Ipswich or Gold Coast or Morayfield or Caboolture, and then they work in the CBD. So like autonomous vehicles would be good for that. Like even if it's just to get to the nearest train station or to get to a major train station and stuff. It'd be interesting as well, like because again, like the ownership model, like do you own the car or do you pay for the service of the car? But because it's an autonomous car, the yearly cost is closer to that of, you know, what people would pay in car ownership at the moment when it comes to things like registration, petrol, maintenance, repayments, and all that sort of stuff. So at the moment, all right, let's give away a bit of give away a bit of our financial situation here. We have a Mazda 2. I think it's a 2020 model or a 2019 model, one of the two. I think, because I'm salary sacrificing it at the moment, I think roughly it's $550 a week in repayments. I say repayments. That covers, because it's a salary sacrifice, that covers everything. So that is the repayments for the initial principal. That is petrol for, I think, 15,000 kilometers a year. That is insurance. That is registration. I think that's also roadside assist. So like, if you could say to people, $300 a fortnight, unlimited use of a vehicle, and maybe you've got to wait 5 to 10 minutes occasionally for it to arrive, I think that should be popular. Like maybe 300 is a bit high. I don't know. I'd have to do the maths. But like, I suppose you'd be paying a little bit extra for the fact that you're not paying off the cost, but you'd have to pay value to the company that is, interesting. It would be like a budgeted cost that you'd put into your weekly, fortnightly budget rather than like, I pay off my car and then blah. And saying that, like if it's as a service, then you'd constantly get newer cars as they came out and as they updated the thingamajigs. So there's always that. I'm not showing my screen, am I? Because what's on the screen at the moment is not safe for work. Good. It probably wouldn't have been a terms of service violation, but well, here's the thing, right? You say stored in a unmanned warehouse. They could be stored in the current car parks that already exist. So like you think about all the car parks that exist in like the city centers around Australia and around America and all that sort of place. If 50% of those spaces were autonomous vehicle parking and they just exit it, like that's built in. Like, yes, you need to do better and you need to have more infrastructure in place, but that's a massive head start. That'd be fantastic. Or even things like shopping centers and stuff, like convert 20%, 30%. See, Gary, I said shopping center before it came up on chat. I don't know what the delay makes it look like, but great minds think alike. Like all these public parking areas, there's there's ride and stop on like the like around train stations and stuff. All of it, that space exists out there. Chuck some electric power there for your electric cars and stuff, and it's all good. Well, see, a driverless motorbike is just going to be one of those drones, right? Instead of a motorbike, and they just go over everything. See, they lane filter, but instead of lane filtering, they'll just go over the top. And cost will be the big thing, because it's one thing to cover the cost, it's another thing to see how much profit they can take from it. That's, yeah. All right. What's the time? 9:15. Oh, my watch just ran out of battery. God damn it. All right. Let's do some other stuff before we throw in the towel for the streaming evening, because I feel like we're on a bit of a roll. YouTube, please let me sort out this broken ass chat. All right, I'm gonna try something very quickly. No, that's my stream layout that should be locked but isn't for some reason. All right, I can do this on my main screen while I'm not sharing it. I can't do it. It's fine. We'll just have to stick with what we've been doing. So we've got a short video that I was going to have a quick look at, which is some company, a YouTube channel, Young America's Foundation. So it's conservative. It's a conservative YouTube channel, so we're gonna do the React Andy shit. It's not gonna be the hopium of driverless cars and electric vehicles and walkable cities and stuff. It's gonna be the doomerism of 5 questions to ask democratic socialists. Now, personally, I'm not a democratic socialist. I'm not sure what label to use. I'm left in politics. I'm for a more democratized workplace. I'm for social services and social security in the forms of shelter and food and, making sure everyone gets livable wages, universal healthcare, including things like optical, dental, all that sort of stuff. Like I'm a big old lefty, and I cry about like the horrible things that happen in the world because I'm such a softie. Massive government, huge government, a government that is so big that no one has to die on the streets. That's how lefty socialist I am. So because what I was thinking tonight is, you know, part of my YouTube diet, YouTube feed, it did come up with, I think Mr. Bear, he did a response video to one of those questions for atheists. And it was from a Islamic perspective. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just go back to my roots and look for, you know, I think I did see like some video pop up, 5 questions for atheists from like some new channel. Like it wasn't Braxton Hunter or anything. But I thought, no, you know what? Let's do the questions for leftists or questions for the left. And this is what I came up with. This is what I found pretty high at the top. Now, I'm a little bit surprised. I don't think I've seen anyone respond to this particular channel. So Young America Foundation, they've got 610,000 subscribers. So while they're not a PragerU or a Ben Shapiro or anything like that, that's big, right? Like the bigger lefty YouTubers are like 400K, 300K, 200K. Like they're smaller than this channel. So I think that's fair game. But one of the missions I've been on recently is to find people who are conservative or on the right who accurately and fairly identify politics on the left and are able to provide coherent, if not compelling, at least rational arguments against left policies. And so as a result, we have this. Fuck housing for vulnerable groups, housing for everybody. And when I say housing for everybody, I don't mean everyone gets a free house. I mean, if you choose to use public housing, oh fuck. Gary, have you seen the video? Is it the housing in Vienna? They got their public housing has like tennis courts, an outdoor swimming pool, an indoor swimming pool, green areas. Even fucking China. There was a TikTok account that I watch occasionally where like they have, now, let's be very clear, right? China is a shit government and China has a lot of problems. So this is not propping up China in any way. And obviously, even in development, when it comes to like talking about apartment complexes and stuff, like there are issues where they get half built and they don't sell them and they stay empty and all this other stuff. But the idea behind the design philosophy of a lot of them, where you enter through a gate and there's green spaces and stuff, like it's actually a livable space, a community space. There's shops integrated. It's close to transport. It's not tiny. Like I love that I live in a place that I'm paying off with my wife. I can identify problems with the size. Like I think this room here is maybe 2.5 meters wide by 3.5 meters long or something like that. Like that's one of the rooms. Like our master bedroom's a lot bigger. The second bedroom barely functions as a room for a child. Like an adult wouldn't be able to comfortably live in this second bedroom. Whereas like these places in China, they're like 3-bedroom apartments that are like a house. Like anyway, we're getting excited about socialism. So 5 questions to ask a democratic socialist. Now, as I said, not a democratic socialist, but don't worry. I pre-watched this video just to make sure it was worth watching. And it's really not about democratic socialists. It's really code for people on the left, i.e. people that are not conservatives.
What I want to do today is I want to give you 5 questions to ask your liberal peers who've jumped on this democratic...
Come on, liberals, answer this for me.
5 questions that destroy the democratic socialist platform.
Anything that says they destroy X, red flag, right? Chances are they don't, but hey.
And then I'm going to tell you why it's important to do this and to know this. So let's start. Question number 1, to ask your liberal peers, what's the difference between democratic socialism and just good old regular socialism?
See? Our first step is to conflate everything with communism.
Define it. When government takes over the means of production and distribution, when government redistributes wealth, that's socialism, right?
So already what we have is an issue where it is a simplification of the ideals and the policies that are actually pushed by the majority of the left. The majority of the left is not looking to, and I say majority because they're a people that are out of touch, batshit crazy on both sides. Now, that's not horseshoe theory because I'm not the biggest fan of that. But what it is an acknowledgement of the fact that if you look at the worst people on either side and you debunk them, you're not actually addressing that side's ideology. A democratic socialist country to me would be a society that democratically decides to implement socialist policies. Not that they would incorporate a socialist structure of the entire country or the entire economy, but that they would increase the amount of socialist systems. So a socialist system would be things like universal healthcare. A socialist system would be public housing. A socialist system would be things like free, greater education, not just your basic K to 12, but also things like university degrees and things like that. Like that would be a democratic socialist agenda. Already, we're having this being conflated with socialism, and later in the video, socialism is going to be then extended into things like Stalinism and, basically everything communist.
And when the government takes over people's profits through taxes and redistributes that money by giving away free stuff, that's democratic socialism. That's the same.
Thank you. She has defined herself into not talking about democratic socialism and just talking about broad, completely straw-manned socialist policy. So we'll have to deal with that. Well, no, yeah, she is wrong, but we're gonna deal with it as she has defined it. We're gonna let her define the words. Yes, she's already failed at what the top title of the video is, but hey.
The only difference is maybe, just maybe, in democratic socialism, the people choose socialism, and in regular old socialism, it's imposed on them.
So, to me, this is kind of like a self-report from conservatives, is when they think that the primary way of determining society's structure, democracy is not the first primary aspect that should be considered. Like, she has completely conceded that democratic socialism is when, even though the will of the people is to have a form of socialist policy implemented throughout, most layers of society, the fact that it's democratic is not good enough to justify it. There's a lot of stuff out there in politics that I dislike. A lot of people that want to do things that I think are harmful, that I think are immoral, that I think are unethical. But I accept that if people vote for those things, then those things are what's going to happen. My response to that is not to say, well, you know what, your entire thing is ridiculous, even if you voted for it. The response to that is to then actually inform and educate and try to advocate for the position that you think is better. I want to say maybe she'll get to that, but I have pre-watched it. She won't.
So, like, the difference between murder and suicide? The same as you're dead? Question.
Socialism is when you die, and democratic socialism is when you kill yourself, and normal everyday socialism is when you get killed by the state. Squid Games. It's all Squid Games.
Where in the world has socialism ever worked? In Venezuela? As we speak, people are fleeing that country because there's no toilet paper on the shelves. I read a story about a month ago about a little girl, I think she was 10 years old. She was in the hospital for an infection that we would have just run to CVS or Walgreens for an antibiotic and not even missed a day of school. This kid landed in the hospital because they're...
Imagine, just close your eyes. Imagine you're an American. And imagine that to prove the supremacy of your particular preferred system of capitalism, you point to healthcare as proof that your system is perfect and better and doesn't lead to people dying. Like, America's got like one of the shortest expected lifespans in the OECD nations. Unbridled capitalism has not led to the best outcomes in America. Her people are okay. Yeah. Of course they are. I remember the frame.
There were no antibiotics available. And she only lived because the kid in the hospital room next door to her died. And his mom gave the little girl his leftover.
Let's also not forget that what we're talking about here is breakdowns in the government's ability to govern. We're not talking about an economic collapse. We're talking about a complete societal collapse due to government and political pressures, not a result of economics, a result of other factors that are incredibly multifaceted and complex and beyond my scope to look at without actually doing any research, and completely ignores the fact that, like, if you want to base this whole thing on one particular story of one person that was tragically only able to survive through the loss of another, like, what's the price of insulin in America? Like, seriously. Like, what's the price of life? Like, how many people bankrupt themselves in America getting healthcare? How many people choose not to get healthcare and end up either with like lifelong injuries that they never recover from, or die early because they can't afford treatment? Kind of sounds dystopian to me, but hey.
Antibiotics. In Cuba, in the universal healthcare system there, you have to bring your own light bulbs and blankets to the hospital.
Imagine Cuba, a island nation that has been under sanctions for like how long? Like, they still drive cars from the fucking 60s or 40s or 50s or whatever. Like, again, it's not just about the socialism. It's about the broader impacts that the way they interact in the political landscape have caused them to be in a situation where they have other issues leading them to not having access to things from, you know, outside of Cuba. Crazy.
The surgical instruments are rusty, and the elites
Talk
fly
about Australia.
to Western nations for their medical care.
Talk about Australia.
And then the left's favorites, you know, when we say Venezuela
Australia.
and Cuba, they
Australia.
stop and tell us that that's not going to happen here. They point to Scandinavia. Guess what just happened in Denmark? They canceled their universal basic income experiment because it didn't.
Right. When I heard this, I was curious, right? So whenever I hear a conservative pundit talk about something and claim that it's because of X, I am immediately skeptical. So what was that? That was Scandinavia? Denmark. All right. Denmark universal healthcare. No, universal income. (2019). She made it sound like this just happened. Did this happen in 2019? See, I don't know necessarily about the most recent trials, but I do know one of the early trials for universal basic income that happened in America. One of the predominant reasons that it was cancelled and was considered a failure was because it led to a higher divorce rate. And the reason it led to a higher divorce rate was because women had the financial means to leave abusive relationships. But because of the Christian-centric nature of American political parties, because of the divorce result, it was considered a failure. All right, so nothing's coming up immediately, so maybe it's going to take me. Denmark, the basic income concept became the. Hang on. Basic income in the Nordic countries. Fuck it. Let's Wikipedia it. Gets me through my fucking degrees. Debated in Nordic countries since the 1970s. Finland conducted a basic income pilot which got international attention. Also some political parties and some politicians and journalists in all Nordic countries who are pushing for the idea of a guaranteed income. The Green parties, for example, are generally interested in universal basic income. Denmark. National election for 2015. Go away. Okay, that doesn't give me... All right, what about 2010s? Right. That's all I can be bothered to invest in that. There we go. We'll look into that later. That's actually an interesting topic for another stream. UBI. Fucking
canceled their universal basic income experiment because it didn't work. It's shocking, right? In Sweden, they turned their...
She's not saying why they didn't work, and that frustrates me, right? Like, if I actually want to look at why the UBI is distasteful to a conservative, I want to understand why they think it doesn't work, so we can discuss that point. Like I said, I think it was in the 70s in America where they tested it, and it didn't work because it increased the divorce rate. I am 100% on board with an increased divorce rate if what it is a result of people getting away from abusive spouses. Like, sign me up for that every day of the fucking week. So, did it not work in Denmark because of some political instability where conservative parties have grown in power? I don't know. She hasn't given us any answers. Couldn't find any quickly Googling it. We're not going to spend all night Googling, but hey, put a pin in it and we'll cover it later.
Economy back towards capitalism decades ago when socialism was threatening to tank their entire country, their economy. In the Soviet Union, there is no better example of socialism than the Soviet Union. People used to stand for hours in line for a loaf of bread, and they ended up, you can see photographs of this in history books that the left does not want you to open. You can see photographs of them eating their own shoes because otherwise they would have starved. So where has socialism ever worked?
It's a good thing that I haven't seen anyone advocating for the Soviet Union arrangement of the economy or the government. Like, I haven't seen that position held by any leftists online.
Nowhere. Everywhere it's tried, it's brought oppression, starvation, and death.
Wait. Are we talking about capitalism or are we talking about socialism at this point? Like, here's the contention, right, is that the idea that capitalism does not lead to these outcomes for a particular portion of the population. It does. It's just that capitalism focuses that on the poor. And they don't see it. Like, okay. I could be convinced that socialism is wrong if you have a good argument. I may not be able to be convinced that capitalism does not do harm to people that are part of the system. Because, yes, I have seen Squid Game, and I understand that capitalism is when you die, trying to get 45 billion won.
And that brings us to question number 3, the bridge between...
So 0 for 2 on the questions, right? Now we're talking about a bridge.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's democratic socialism and regular old socialism. Who pays for all of that free stuff?
The rich. The rich pay. We know the rich can pay.
That she's promising. I mean, it would be great. I'm not going to lie. If you look at what she's promising, who wouldn't want to have all of that disposable income, someone else paying for everything that you're doing? But who pays for it? I know, Wall Street, the top 1%. That's what she says. But even if you tax the top 1% at a 100% tax rate, it still would not pay for all the free stuff Bernie and Ocasio-Cortez are promising.
So I've heard that we can actually cover these programs. So, for example, the big thing in America has been the $6 billion reconciliation program, which was a whole bunch of like progressive policies that the Democrats ran their platform on. I'm sorry, did I say 6 billion? I meant 4.5 billion. Oh, wait, shit, no. 1.5 billion. It was 1.5 billion. That's right. Thank you. Thank you, Manchin, whatever the fuck your name is. They had actually figured that it could be funded through increasing the tax to pre-Trump levels when it comes to corporate tax levels. So the numbers are there. Like, you can institute these policies. Now, the problem is that, do I think she is looking at the cost of implementing a complete socialist hellscape like the Soviet Union and figuring out the cost of paying everyone $1 million because that's socialism? Or is she looking at genuinely what the cost to benefit ratio is? So we can look at some socialist policies. My favorite it's not my favorite, but one of my favorite socialist policies is that education should be free. Why do I think education should be free? I'm talking about university. So in Australia, up to grade 12 is free. To go to university, not free. It was free for some of the politicians that are in power. It wasn't free for me. Even more expensive for kids these days, especially if you're not doing one of the preferred subjects, that is generally things that are less arts and communication and like, we actually have tax policies in Australia that are pushing people to do specific jobs, which I think is kind of bullshit. Anyway, if you get a tertiary degree, what does that do? That gives you the skills to do work that is paid more. If you get paid more for your work, what happens? You pay more taxes. You pay taxes from, let's say, the age of 22 to 65. Over those 43 years, if you make extra money because you've got a degree, you're paying extra taxes, you're in a higher bracket, you actually tend to pay off more in additional taxes through the additional money that you make than it would have cost to get you that education. So it actually invests money and pays out money by educating the population. It increases the GDP of the entire country and actually makes it so we are more profitable and we are in a better position and we are able to actually have people make proper money. The problem is when governments are in power and politicians are looking at policy and how to implement changes, they are measuring the effects in 3-4 year cycles. They are looking at what is the voting cycle impacts of this policy that I can demonstrate as outcomes for my constituents. In no position do any of them have the ability to look at 30 years in the future. If I make free education a priority now, that I can demonstrate that our budget will be inflated by a higher GDP because we are earning more as a country, because we're in an information economy where innovation and research and all this stuff that Australia used to be really good at is a key to lifting us back up. No one runs on that policy. No one.
Promising people. So what happens then? Well, you tax the rich, and once the rich aren't rich anymore, you tax the kind of rich. And once the kind of...
Taxing the rich does not reduce their taxable income, leading you to have to tax the next people in the rung. If you tax the rich, their taxable income stays the same, and their their gross becomes lower because you're taxing it. It's not like you tax the rich by 50% and their $500,000 paycheck goes down to $250. So now you got to go to the people that you haven't taxed that are earning $350 and tax them down to $150. It doesn't work that way. Like, holy shit. Like, it's got to be like, she's not that stupid. The challenge with the principle of charity, and sorry I didn't put the frame on. The challenge with the principle of charity is, what is more charitable? To think that she is so stupid that she thinks if you tax the rich, you reduce their wealth to the point where you then go to the next category and tax them down, and then the next category, and you keep going until no one's got any money. Does she think that's how taxes work? That seems pretty uncharitable to me, which means then I need to go to the other option, which is she is actually lying. She's actually being deceptive in how she is presenting her beliefs in order to try and convince people that what she is saying is right by scaring them into thinking their money's going to be taken away from them. But that means she's just a fucking cruel, cynical grifter. So which one is the principle of charity in this case? I feel like I'm trapped between a rock and a hard place. And this is why I think these ideas and these conservative policies are so fucking easy, like, to pull out the logic and expose them for being just purely self-interested justifications for wanting to keep everything personally and not worry about what else is happening in society. Yep. Pretty much digging money out of the ground and selling it in your current term to ensure that your lobbyist groups are satisfied and that you have a place to go when you exit politics seems to be a pretty big part of Australian politics. And the retirement plan of a lot of politicians.
The rich aren't kind of rich anymore. You tax the middle class. And once the middle class have been taxed to the point where they aren't the middle class anymore.
Oh my God, it doesn't happen like this.
People, right? Isn't that what we were going for?
Sorry.
The poor and the government is in charge of all of your money.
I need a third monitor here so I can see what my screen
democratic socialism, if there is a difference, from turning into regular old socialism. Nothing.
Democracy.
They cannot identify.
It's in the fucking name. A democratic process for people to identify the limits of where they want socialist intervention in the policies that affect their fucking daily lives is what will prevent it from becoming the hellscape fucking apocalyptic outcomes that you fantasize about to prove that it is bad. And like I said, I'm not a DemSoc, I'm not a liberal, but like it's fucking incredible. It's in the fucking name. Democratic processes. That is the fucking protection. Even a capitalist system is using democratic processes to protect itself. Now that has been purely undermined by the fact that it turns out that money actually equates to influence in a fucking democratic government. But hey.
A line or a mark on this continuum of socialism that would stop it from moving from one end of the spectrum to the other. Once you give the government the power to tell people what to do, once government has the power to take our money and give it to somebody else, once the government has the power to tell us what our fair share is, it's just a matter of time before.
So what's the line in the continuum of capitalism that is going to stop corporatists and large companies from making their profit motive such a high priority that it literally causes the deterioration of the bodies of their workers as they get abused, as they get overworked, as they get underpaid, as they lose access to things like healthcare, as they can't afford the fucking products that they're making, selling, or fucking supporting? At what point in the continuum of this capitalist system do we put things in place to protect people? Because the ultimate outcome of this is we get to a point where people are so disenfranchised by the work that they do because they have such little stake in the businesses that their labor is actually creating, that they get to the point where they need to go and fucking respond to a fucking rich guy who wants to play a game in a train station where you've got to try and flip this fucking card over, and if you can flip that card over, you get 10,000 won. If you don't though, he gets to slap you in the face, and when that guy leaves, he'll give you a little fucking card, and that card will say, do you want to come and play a Squid Game? At what point on this continuum of capitalism do we have a line that stops that from happening? Good argument, isn't it? Like logical. Makes sense, right?
It's full-blown socialism. And so question number 5 is a question that it's a bit surprising to me that the left doesn't ask.
I blanked out because I don't remember what question 3 or 4 was.
I'm not talking about the radical leftist politicians. I'm talking about the voters. Why on earth do they not ask, why would we want that here? We all want fairness. Everyone in this room, I think, wants fairness. We want every person to get a fair shot and a fair opportunity.
You don't.
But in the past 100 years, 100 million innocent people have been killed by socialist and communist governments and regimes.
Do we have Godwin's law?
Is that what democratic socialists want to happen here?
No, it's not. You're
so
an
you
idiot.
guys know all of this stuff, right? Right, you know all this stuff. You know socialism is one of the deadliest ideologies the world has ever known. You know there is a difference between giving somebody a hand up and giving somebody a hand out. Because a handout means you have to steal what's in your hand from somebody else's hand.
Amazing. Fucking amazing. I want someone that believes that handouts are stealing from people that already worked for things to sit down and explain to me step by step how it is better for them to keep what they worked hard for than it is for them to pay their fair share to ensure that we have a society that functions and supports everyone. You can't ask conservatives, Gary. They won't answer. You ask conservatives this question and they'll do the same bullshit. You ask a conservative what they think leftist policies are and you'll get a discussion about fucking Cuba, Venezuela, and fucking the Soviet communist state. Like, they will not address fucking healthcare. They won't address things like public housing. They won't address the inequalities that are inherent in capitalism. The fact that the pure act of owning an object means that any value that is extracted out of that object by workers belongs to you primarily. And the more that you can disenfranchise those workers from access to that value by paying them as little as fucking possible. Like, one of the biggest deceptions that I think has happened when it comes to the labor value, like in society, right? One of the things that's happened over the last 5-10 years is micro gigging. Right, so the idea that you've got websites like Fiverr, you've got websites, services like Uber Eats, Uber itself, Lyft, like things where you can do a quick job and you get paid a few dollars and it's all sorted by an app. I think it's been one of the biggest PR wins of these companies is that they've been able to sell it as you get to work for yourself and you get to take control of your work-life balance by being a Lyft driver, by being a Fiverr person, by being a fucking Twitch streamer. And it turns out that all that has been able to achieve is driving down the value of people's wages by underpaying them for work, because they have started to look at how they can categorize labor workers as contractors. In Australia, we have relatively strong wage laws. We have a relatively decent minimum wage where I think it's about $21. And on top of that, we have, really good access to things like benefits. So in Australia, we have 4 weeks of leave a year when it comes, so for full-time, and it's prorated for equivalent. We get 4 weeks of holidays a year. We get 2 weeks of sick leave a year, which accumulates year on year. We get, I think, 7 public holidays generally. And we get access to things like domestic violence leave. We get paternity and maternity leave. I think that's up to 12 weeks. So we broadly have it pretty good. How they've tried to get around this is by creating systems that call people contractors. And when people are contractors, there's no minimum wage, there's no benefits required, there's no superannuation that needs to get paid. Essentially, it's been a way to underpay people and get around minimum wage laws in Australia to make things like Uber Eats make sense, because people won't pay the value of someone driving their food to them. Which one was it? One of them got in trouble pretty quickly after they arrived, because one of the things with law in Australia, and I don't know if it's the same in America, but if a case is taken to the court in Australia, they will actually look at like a contract and they'll say, well, this contract says you're a contractor, but then it stipulates things like you need a uniform, you need to be available at a set schedule of hours, you need to do this, you need to do that. And they'll actually look at the holistic nature of a relationship between an employer and employer, and they'll actually go, well, fuck off. They're not contractors. They're employees. You need to pay them all their benefits, all their super, all their sick leave, all that sort of stuff. Yet they've become super popular as a way to make money. And it makes me sad. It really does. It really does. There was, who was it? There was a YouTube... They had a guest on that was an editor. I've spoken about her on stream before. Shit, what's her name? Emma something. Emma Watkins? Something like that. Where she had a editor on, and they were talking about how people are going on Fiverr to find editors for like chump change. Like for an hour of work, they'll charge like $10, and it's not enough. It's horrible. And that's capitalism. It's just completely finding more creative ways to divorce workers from the actual value they're providing to the capital owners, because Uber owns the app, so they can pay you fuck all and call you a contractor. Because Flight Centre, Richard Turner, he owns the fucking seat that you're sitting in when you're selling the fucking travel products to the people of Australia. When I worked for Flight Centre, when I started for Flight Centre, now to be fair, this is in 2008, and I know it has gone up since then, but they first employed me at $30,000 a year. For context, the minimum wage at the time was $42,000 a year, but they paid me $30K plus commission. The commission in that job was 10% of the profit of every sale was paid to me. So a $2,000 Emirates flight, for example, pays 5% commission. So there's $100 profit on a $2,000 flight with Emirates, say return flight from Brisbane to London, which means that's $100 a profit, which means I get $10 dues for selling a flight from Brisbane to Sydney. That takes roughly, if the customer knows exactly what they want, that takes about half an hour. If they don't know what they want, then they want a few different options and they go away with quotes and they come back and they ask me to look for a particular seat, or if they go, hey, I want to do a stopover in Singapore, that could take an hour and a half, even maybe 2 fucking hours, because people are fucking all over the place when it comes to travel. And that's fine, that's their prerogative. But the point is, fucking Flight Centre would pay me $10 for that. And that's if I was lucky, because if I was unlucky, and it was actually pretty common, they would take that $2,000 quote away, they'd go online and they'd look up all the details that I'd just given them on the quote, and they'd find that if they go to webjet.com.au, they could find the flight for $1,900. Oops, turns out that's my cost. So now I have to beat that by $1 because that's the Flight Centre policy. Suddenly, the capital owner, Richard Turner, is still making money, is still making a profit, is still generating revenue, but I actually have to give that discount out of the profit first, which means suddenly I'm getting nothing for that. Fantastic. Amazing. Oh, boy. New South Wales laws about to be in effect will transfer casual workers to full-time if more than 20 employees. Interesting. Oh, and yes, maintenance of their own vehicles and shit. Like, fucking hell. I hate that I love the convenience of those services. I just hate the way that staff are treated. And even the restaurants, like, they get a fucking raw... From what I can tell, Uber Eats takes like a 30% cut of the total value of the basket and then pays the driver like $5 or something. And they've got the fucking gall to try and bring tipping into Australia and make tipping a thing here in Australia. Like, fucking hell. And there's another tangent. Tipping in America. Have you been on Reddit? If you go on Reddit, there's a subreddit called Tales from the Server. And like, it almost makes me sad how like committed to the system some of these people are, in that like they'll complain. There was one today where they worked for a business. Let's find it. We're off topic. We're off whatever we were doing. There was another thing we were going to cover, but we'll see. It's getting a bit late. I've been streaming for a little while. How long have I been streaming for? Does YouTube tell me how long I've been streaming? 2 hours and 20 minutes. Look at me. I used to stream with 6 people and I could barely go 2 hours. Fucking holding it down by myself. Gary, I've got to mod you because I am sick of approving your messages. I know that's the thing I probably should ask if people are okay if they're mods, but fuck you, you're a mod. All right. No, we'll do this quickly and then I might go on tipping stuff. God damn it. I need a third monitor. I wish I didn't need a third monitor. So, fuck me. Twitter. I love Twitter. Like, all of you that are on Twitter, I love Twitter. I don't hate Twitter at all. But holy shit. This fucking... this discourse, man. It's fucking discourse. New culture war just dropped. Should classic rock songs be toppled like Confederate statues? Chat? Responses. What do we think? What's your gut reaction to that? And yes, this is a trap. Everyone's gone quiet. Bastards. Yes, that's a pragmatic response, Gary. But what I'm getting at And sorry, that was a trap question in some ways. This tweet is how I came across this particular, like Dr. Seuss, yeah. I need to set the other monitor as my default so my alt tabbing doesn't come up on stream. Yeah, that would be a stream improvement right there. Society will decide, yeah. So, this tweet drops, right? Now, with this context, right? Opinion, guest essay, should classic rock songs be toppled like Confederate statues? November 3rd, 2021. So, it's the 5th today. The 4th in America. Well, it's probably just changed to the 5th. So, I'm hoping this blows up. I'm hoping that I'm just like first in at this fucking culture war shit. Because holy shit. I actually don't know this account. Okay, no, I can't be bothered figuring out what her politics are. Fine, whatever. New culture war just dropped. The responses. Holy shit, the responses. Like, oh my god. Oh. Okay, so yes, so the responses where they're just like, you know, there's some songs I don't like, ha ha ha, let's cancel it. And then we go, no, even the ones I hate need to stay. From a Cold Dead Hands. As Professor Daryl Hamamoto has been suggesting, the music of the boomer generation is under attack because the boomer generation is also under attack. We remember the Kennedy assassination. We remember what the CIA did to this country in Vietnam. And after, when the veterans could not find work because of their 6-month tours, they did not re-enlist. They were often given dishonorable discharge comments on their exit papers. Thus the reason for the massive numbers of Vietnam vets who have been homeless all the years. Great. What the? Okay. I don't get how that's actually a thing. Classic rock like what? Save us the updates and just write, should things that bring people joy be toppled as white supremacy culture? Spoiler, their answer is always yes. Rock and roll censorship was a rallying cry from conservative right some 35 years ago. Now it's coming from the progressive left. Robert. They're the new moral majority because they're too young to remember what the original moral majority was cringe. All right. 100%. There are songs where they're a bit cringe. Like Eminem. There are some Eminem songs from his early discography that are distinctly not woke. All the funny ones. They hate everything they haven't created. Pretty simple, really. Pour some sugar on me. Very offensive to diabetics. Rally cry. Let's ban anything that wasn't created yesterday. Like, look how, like, people are molding. They're fucking, like, it's a combination of people that are like, haha, cancel this person I don't like. And people that are like, oh, holy shit, like, these kids these days. So we should find some juice in the quote retweets. Motherfuckers really trying to ban the immigrant song. I don't know, man. Seems kind of xenophobic to me. Better hope they don't get into the blues. Those people are the preferred hue, you know? Field holler? I don't know. This back and forth internet propaganda has a boy mixed up. It all hurts with losing trust in big media. How does one topple a song? You mean ban it? Ban internationally influential American art in America? The land of the free? Yep, the Overton window is wide open in America. ACLU want to chime in on this staggering illiberalism with another one of your banger opinion pieces. I feel like this is gonna storm the fucking internet. Now, funny fact about this tweet, there's no link. I can't click on this. However, am I gonna get to the bottom of this fucking horse shit? I don't know why I said horse shit. I think after you mentioned Joe Rogan, horse shit sprung to mind. I thought I opened up the window on this. All right, that's all right. We can Google it. Should classic rock be toppled? Spoiler, I've read the article. Here we are. We found the source. Isn't that amazing? By Jennifer Finney Boylan. All right, let's have a quick scan of the author, right? Because boomers are under attack by today's generation. Born June 22, 19. Oh, it's a boomer. Oh my God. Oh. Okay, so everyone that was worried it was about boomers being under attack by the younger generation clearly didn't read the article. Let's see the article. Let's go through the article, right? Let's see. A long time ago, I can still remember how that music used to make me smile. Okay, that's how she's starting. Felt like that was the start of because she's anyway. I'm not going to critique her writing skills. She's probably a better writer than me. American Pie, Don McLean's generation-defining ballad, was released on vinyl 50 years ago this October. The first time I ever heard it, I was with my sister in our kitchen. I was 13. I was eating a bowl of alphabet cereal. It came on the radio, and my sister, only a year older but centuries cooler, told me, "This is the greatest song ever." It's impossible for me to hear that song now without thinking of her. But when Patricia McLean, Don McLean's ex-wife, hears American Pie, she isn't reminded of golden moments of adolescence or even the classic age of rock and roll memorialized by the song. Miss McLean says she was subjected by years of emotional and physical abuse from her former husband. I didn't know this. This is all news to me. Miss McLean was married to her husband for 29 years before the night 5 years ago that she made a 911 call. In the aftermath, Mr. McLean was arrested on suspicion of domestic violence. He was charged with 6 misdemeanors. He pleaded guilty to 4 as part of a plea agreement in which the domestic violence charge would be dismissed after a year. For the other 3 charges, criminal restraint, criminal mischief, and making domestic violence threats, he paid some $3,000 in fines. All right, so guy's a bad guy. Cool. So, if he's a bad guy, do we cancel the song? That's, should classic rock songs be toppled like Confederate statues? It's a very, very evocative title. I will give them that. The past several years have seen a reassessment of our country's many mythologies, from the legends of the generals of the Confederacy to the historical glossing over of slave-holding founding fathers. But as we take another look at the sins of our historical figures, we're also had to take a hard look at our more immediate past and present, including the behavior of the creators of pop culture. Michael Jackson, another good example. This reassessment extends now to the people who wrote some of our best loved songs, but what to do with the art left behind? Can I still love their music if I'm appalled by various events in the lives of Johnny Cash or Elvis or Jerry Lee Lewis, or by Eric Clapton's racist rants and anti-vaccination activism? Of course, there is no easy answer here. Even Miss McLean doesn't think American Pie should be banned from playlists. Is this counter to what everyone was responding to and reacting to? Like some other pieces of classic rock produced by disgraced musicians, Gary Glitter's Rock and Roll Part 2, more popularly known as the Hey song, I don't recognize that, for instance, was pulled from airplay. Oh, there you go, that's why. After the musician was convicted of possession of CP and a series of sex abuse offenses against young girls. Indeed, Miss McLean told me she feels we should reconsider how we elevate these artists. It's the tarnished creator, she said, that we should not celebrate. In other words, the problem with American Pie isn't the song, it's the singer. American Pie remains a great song. In 2016, the Library of Congress selected the original recording for preservation in the National Recording Registry. Indeed, it would almost be easier if it were just the song. The Rolling Scrolls quietly removed Brown Sugar from their current US tour setlist. The track's racist lyrics, which refer to slave ships and rape, have been controversial since the song was first hit in 1971, the same year as American Pie, and yet the guitarist Keith Richards, when asked about the removal, seemed a little uneasy with the decision. I'm trying to figure out with the sisters quite where the beef is. Didn't they understand this was a song about the horrors of slavery? There are a lot of things I revere about Brown Sugar, and Mr. Richards' guitar riffs not least, but I can tell you that in 50 years it has not once occurred to me that this song might even be remotely be about the empowerment of black women. If the Stones don't know why the song has to go, does simply removing it from their tour sheet go far enough? For a lot of baby boomers, it is painful to realize that some of the songs first lodged in our memories and adolescence really need a second look, and it's hard to explain why younger versions of ourselves ever thought they were okay in the first place. I want to live in a world where I can be moved by art and music and literature without having to come up with elaborate apologies for that work or for its creators. But does such a world exist? It is hard to think of some of our greatest artists without also thinking of their messy, sometimes destructive lives. In so many cases, it's the very chaos of these lives that have helped create the art. It is easy to romanticize that chaos and to ignore the wreckage artists can leave in their wakes. It was Don McLean in American Pie who asked if music can save our mortal souls. My guess is probably not, but it can help us to time travel and to not only to our adolescent past. Maybe reconsidering the songs and the artists can inspire us to think about the future and how to bring about a world that is more inclusive and more just. So, doesn't seem like all the potential outrage that is going to come from that is actually what that article is about. The article seems to be a lot more focused around struggling with the contention of this is a really great piece of art and this is a messy, problematic, and in some cases horrible person. Yes, it does consider that there's probably a line that we shouldn't necessarily cross to continue to support art if an artist is particularly egregious, but holy shit, the fucking molding of these fucking... Like, it's not... Salt and pepper. Ah, I get it. Yep. All right, cool. It's like they didn't read the article. Like, that's Twitter, right? They don't read the fucking article. This is it, though. Like, I'm not even sure some of these are conservatives. Like, I just think they're reactionary. It's just fucking Twitter reactionaries. You know, they're fucking enlightened centrists that will just be like, well, the truth of the matter is somewhere in the middle because both sides are leading to extremes and therefore we need to basically just take the average of every opinion and we'll find the truth that can be arrived at through complete factual analysis. God, I hate that so much. Like, as if you can find the truth in the center of things like, you know, the abortion debate or the fucking whether or not people actually have a right to housing and safety and shit. Doesn't make any sense. Does not make any sense. All right, well, it's been a long string. Yeah, that's it. It's oversimplification. Like, the real answer is to find what does the best for the most people. And compromising with people that don't want the best is not how you achieve the best. We can disagree about what the best is, but we can't even have a fucking fair argument about why we think the best things for people are so different between groups. Like, it shits me so much. And especially in the last couple of weeks, I've been fucking this close to like calling out specific behaviors in people where there's claims that it's all about having discussions with people and all about fucking, you know, I can be friends with anyone even if we have dissenting opinions, when it's not the fuck. I've never met a conservative that has been consistent with that fucking viewpoint. I don't know why it's been bothering me for the last week. But anyway, I'm going to go and do something about the rest of this room. I don't know how much of that you can see, but it's a fucking mess. And I didn't really show the mess, did I? And I'll probably actually end up playing some Animal Crossing because the new expansion dropped. So I probably won't do any of that cleaning, but I will do it tomorrow. So I'm the worst at softball. No, I'm good at softball. I throw fucking the softest balls because I never have I ever spoken to a person that I've had any level of interaction with where I have done anything to impugn their personal beliefs or personal intentions. And yet, fucking, they don't even swing. They don't even fucking swing. Anyway. It's weird because I'm looking at the YouTube thing there. Yeah, Gary knows. All right. Thank you to everyone that joined. This will probably be clipped into some various things to go up on the channel as well. Feel free to not watch those because you guys were here. But if you did miss some of the earlier stuff, look out for some of those. So we'll probably put up, hopefully I can extract something out about the walkable cities and the autonomous vehicles. That was really cool. Age of Atheism, thank you for that link to the autonomous vehicle stuff. And we'll see if we can extract anything out of the last couple of chats. So yeah, it was good. Like diversifying a bit out of like just cringe and like, you know, complete lefty bullshit and atheism stuff, I think has been very helpful. So, and actually, I need to make a note. What did we say? We're going to look into UBI stuff. There was something else. There was another claim. Because I'm with you, Gary. Like you said, you had a quick look, and generally it looks favorable. Shit, I feel like there was something else I was going to look up. UBI stuff's a good point anyway. It's a good start. Oh, public housing. That was it. There we go. Look at me planning a stream already. I might even actually schedule next week's stream and hopefully get a few more of the old crew that used to hang out to watch those videos. So. Research the link you posted. Where's the link? Where's the link? Where's the link? Where's the link? I'm going back pretty far. I might have missed it. Oh God, hey, it's that day. I missed that. Well. I'll find the link in the playback. Ah, there we go. Vox. Nice. Sorry. Well, you're modded now, so. All right. Peace. Is that the button?